First of all, we want to say, Vietnam is the champion. This is the Vietnamese subbed manga dubbing released on the Anime Review 47 channel.
Die, you filthy pig!
Here, this isn't me. No, this worthless, pathetic fat guy here is actually me, defeated by the protagonist. This is how the plot will go if I don't do anything. And in the end, this fat guy, me, will end up forced to quit school after losing to the protagonist. It all started when I, a top-ranking player, got to be a tester for the latest big update. Back then, I carelessly selected autopick instead of customizing my own character. And then, we all appeared together in the game space. Is this the head of the Game Academy? The instructor's giving a speech? Oh, I know him. Every character from the storyline is here, and the shocking part is they look incredibly real. So this is the Dunex update, the game I've played for years, from when I was in school until I started working. So they've improved the graphics quality and added a few new characters. It's enough to show how big this game company has gotten. Shit! Are you kidding me? No graphics could possibly look this real. I started to worry that maybe I'd been thrown into a seriously bad situation. After the meeting ended, I was placed in Class E, and I immediately felt something was off. The gravity of this world. What? What is this? I was utterly in despair, because I know this guy in the mirror all too well. He tries to get close to one of the heroines and harasses her again and again. And when he goes up against the male protagonist, he's utterly defeated. His name is Narumi Souta, nicknamed Butao, the pig. How pathetic. This 100-kilo body is practically a debuff in itself. And here's the heroine he's going to harass, Hayase Kaoru. She's a national kendo champion. One of those rare characters who's both smart and strong, beautiful, and treats everyone equally, except for one person. Her attitude toward him was obvious from that time on the stairs. Butao even picks a fight with the protagonist. Even I barely have any feelings toward this character. He's not strong, just annoying, a troublesome side character. Look, they're gathering together over there. They're going to be key figures in the class later on. But for some reason, when I see Hayase run over to the protagonist, I feel really uncomfortable, a stabbing pain in my chest. Are these Butao's lingering feelings? Hell yeah, it's me, fatty. Look at all these debuffs I'm stuck with. Damn it. I can only try to push those thoughts aside. Now I have to head back to class, and all I need to do is get Hayase to warm up to me. She's looking at me. Oh, this is it. The debuff has reset. And so, my second life is starting. All right, now I know she really hates me, but I need to find a seat. There it is! All the way at the back of the class. Total failure. I'm not only in the worst class, but also sitting at the very back. I can only comfort myself by remembering that the entrance exam was hellishly difficult, and yet Butao still managed to pass. Just to get into this prestigious school, the Adventurer Academy, the teacher walks in. Attendance begins. He's Murai Hajime, one of the graduates from the Adventurer University. I can feel the power in his words. It's so real. And everyone in class is listening intently, tense with focus. Everything is playing out according to the game's script. Mr. Murai begins explaining the background. He talks about the adventurers in this world. It's a profession that's really gaining attention. It's also the term for those allowed to enter dungeons, a competition that's extremely challenging, just like this school. What's more, students here get a lot of special privileges. For me, it's like a dream come true. I start thinking about the future if I can't get back to my own world. Fortunately, there are a good number of options if I don't want to stay in school. But if I do want to stay, I could become a scout. After all, this game's main setting revolves around dungeons. In this game, dungeon resources support the energy industry. Oh, why does Hayase Kaoru's image keep popping up in my head? That's why adventurers are always recruited by tons of companies eager to hire them. Naturally, I'll need to dive into these dungeons more actively, all for my future's sake. After that, each of us received some gear. It was a smartwatch. Besides working like a smartphone, it's also used to monitor the player's status, plus one other feature. Log out! Log out! Log out! Log out! Holy shit! And that's the moment I completely gave up hope of returning. Look at this fat guy's stats. I guess I'll have to get used to this and update myself on my debuffed status. Meanwhile, over in Class D, here's the boss of this class, and they're getting ready to welcome us newcomers. And I'm still lying on my desk, sighing, thinking it over. Isn't this my dream come true? I've always wanted to be in the world of Dunex. Just a little unlucky that I ended up in Butao's body. I have a starting skill called Glutton. I've played this game for so long, practically a first-generation player, yet I didn't even know about this skill. And having a skill at this stage is pretty rare. A strange skill. If taken literally, it probably lets me eat a large amount of food. Must be because I'm fat, right? And then, the thugs from Class D started coming into our class. The fattest one loudly called our entire class a bunch of losers. He introduced his boss, Korea from Class D, and said they'd be taking a few of us as underlings today. So, everyone had to show their personal stats and skills. Suddenly, Hayase stood up. She's the heroine, so of course she won't let this happen. She shouted that they couldn't just behave so unreasonably, and just because they're classmates doesn't mean they have to show such private information. The others immediately joined in, condemning the thugs and saying that even though they're in Class D, the power gap isn't that big. The gang leader stood there, arms crossed, with a cold, stoic look. Meanwhile, the fat, long-haired thug moved closer to Hayase. He stared straight into her eyes, then shouted,
That's an order! Got it!
Damn, that's aura. This fat, long-haired guy isn't ordinary at all. He's actually even stronger than Hayase at this point, and the whole class went silent. The fat guy repeated his demand. Then suddenly, he called on me.
Hey, you over there, the fat one, the one in the failure seat.
What? Fat one? Naturally, I did as he said. He didn't seem too pleased, though. Turns out my stats were just too low. He mercilessly called me a minor, worthless character they didn't need. Hey, take that, you bastard! Well, that's what someone else might say, but not me. I just accepted my small, lowly role. He kept going, picking out others. Then he found a rare gem and called her up. Am I right? She's beautiful. Sanju Sakurako, nicknamed Pink, one of the heroines of the game and a selectable character. She's one of the main reasons Dunex became a huge success. The fat guy was definitely interested, even though she's only level 1 with no special skills. He still brought her into his party. Only problem is, Pink didn't want any part of it. She was even trembling, her legs shaking with fear. The whole class could only stand and watch, overwhelmed by Class D's strength. Even if our entire class combined forces, we couldn't defeat Korea. But I know Pink will be okay, because someone just stepped up and stopped this fat guy. It's our protagonist saying,
She obviously doesn't like this.
This chivalrous display by Yuma touched the heart of Hayase Kaoru. The big guy reluctantly let go, realizing that Akagi Yuma was no pushover. Then the protagonist boldly declared that he would become the strongest in the entire school. His words stirred Kaoru's emotions once again, but also caused someone dozing off nearby to open his eyes. It was Korea Isamu,
NANI?
the boss of Class D. The others immediately burst out laughing, finding this kid's claim hilarious. But Isamu wasn't joking. He unleashed his aura and looked at Yuma with a predatory gaze. It could only be said that this guy was incredibly strong, and he didn't take kindly to anyone calling themselves the strongest. That would mean they were stronger than him. To crush the spirit of all of Class E, he announced a challenge to the confident kid, to be held 1 month from now. Of course, losing didn't mean death. To claim the title of the strongest, Yuma would have to defeat Isamu first. There was no other option, and this fight seemed fair enough. Yuma was fully confident in himself and accepted. With that, the Class D boss decided he'd remember this name and walked away. He didn't forget to warn the protagonist that if he lost, he'd have to forfeit a hand. Class E erupted after that, everyone admiring Yuma's boldness. The one most taken aback was her, Hayase Kaoru. Yuma made her not only like him, but admire him as well. He was the type of person who was righteous, honest, and noble, the very reason she enrolled in this academy. And there was another reason. She wanted to get away from someone, her fiancé, who was me, Narumi Souta.
This is from the perspective of the female lead. Every time she went up the stairs, she had to hold down her skirt, because Butao would always be at the bottom of the stairs, trying to look up.
I'm not.
She was fully aware of this. Butao had been much more adorable as a child. Though he was shy, he was sincere and would always stand up for her whenever other boys tried to bully her. Finally, she'd made it into the academy, successfully taking her first step away from Butao. But what she hadn't anticipated was her chubby friend had also gotten into the academy.
I can't believe it. He followed me all the way to the academy.
In truth, his family and Kaoru's were quite close. They practically considered her part of the family. So when they asked her to help train Suta in swordsmanship, she couldn't refuse. And when Suta passed the entrance exam, they even brought her gifts to thank her. By the way, Kaoru had recently won an international swordsmanship competition. After that, they continued training together. Though he'd impressed her by passing the exam, she seriously doubted how much effort this lazy guy would actually put in. No dieting, waking up late. Even when he started running, he'd find ways to stop. He was lazy as if it were a chronic condition. Kaoru's disdain for him grew stronger over time. That's why, even though she knew that if he kept this up in the Adventurers Academy, he'd have a tough time, Kaoru still decided to coddle him, convincing herself that maybe it was just her nature. At times, Kaoru felt as if the current Suta was somehow her fault. Then one day she realized she needed to change that mindset. It wasn't just a feeling of guilt, it was genuine responsibility. She made up her mind. She would break free from the constraints of those memories. She no longer cared at all about Suta's feelings. And now, just look. That guy over there was shining brightly. If only Suta were as courageous as he was.
All right, the commotion had finally settled and I could sit down. Suddenly someone called out to me.
What's up with you today?
Huh? I had no idea what she meant. She crossed her arms, clearly keeping her distance. But at the same time, she wanted me to say something. I didn't have anything to say. So I just apologized and said I was busy. That was that.
The truth was, Suta hadn't trained at all for 2 weeks, and he showed no signs of wanting to resume. Since she'd promised his parents, Kaoru was just checking in. But really, any love she once had for him was gone. So now she had to focus on leveling up as quickly as possible, and training without Suta would give her more time. Then, she could get back to handling the biggest issue in her life, her engagement contract with Suta. And the scary thing was, the Suta she knew would soon start craving her body. Especially now, since she'd found a protagonist she admired. That contract was the one thing stopping her from loving anyone else.
Of course, I had no clue about any of this. After that, I went home. Here's my mother. Here's my little sister. And of course, here's me. I felt too embarrassed to even step into my own house. The difference in looks is so drastic, it actually brought tears to my eyes. Suta's room is unbelievably messy. What I need to do now is quickly get into the dungeon to check a few things. Suddenly, I noticed a suspicious bottle on the ground. Maybe I should clean up this room as well. But something feels a bit strange while I'm cleaning the room. I have this vague feeling that this scene feels very familiar, like I should use this body to recall some useful things. Perhaps one day I'll be able to remember everything I want easily. Kaoru's invitation the other day has also made me feel a bit anxious. And amidst this messy pile of papers, I found something. My magical contract with Kaoru. Looking at these drawings, it's like a bunch of kids made them. All right, summon Butao's memories. Is this it? In the end, I still can't remember anything specific. But I'm certain it's important. After that, I'll head into the dungeon. This is the building for each dungeon. Of course, you have to register to get in. What? She looks at me like she's judging me. But once she found out I was a student at the Adventurers Academy, I only needed to give my name and ID. There's always a huge crowd pouring into this place. I got in line to enter as well. This is the entrance. It's as crowded as a supermarket on the weekend. This gate is massive, but it's pitch black inside. All right, even though I hesitated a bit, I finally went in, experiencing the feeling of going through the dungeon gate for the first time. Following the crowd, at last, the real dungeon appeared before my eyes. I immediately bypassed the crowd and went deeper in. A cloud of black smoke appeared behind me. It quickly formed into a slime on the ground. I knew this small creature well. I swung my baseball bat at it. It exploded, releasing a puff of black smoke. Then a crystal dropped out. So, my first monster was successfully defeated. I'll definitely remember this moment, my very first battle in a dungeon. And what is this feeling? Excitement? Yes, I'm truly in the world of Dunex now. But these monsters are too low level. I want to go in and check a few things. If this place is like in the game, then I already know the area map quite well. And here it is, the slime room. The slimes come into this room and merge together, so if I want to level up, this is the room to do it. Whoa, this slime seems pretty aggressive. Is it even trying to communicate with me? But soon enough, they're gathering together, forming into a large body. I was waiting for that. And now it's as big as an adult. Of course, it's still no match for me. Fighting so realistically like this is addictive. I could feel my body's instincts moving. Then I swung the bat to finish it off, successfully leveled up to level 2. After that, I felt some changes in my body. It felt strange the first time, but this feeling is amazing. I might end up addicted to it. I've even forgotten that feeling of weakness I had in class. Strangely, there's no one else here. This is usually a favorite spot for us players. It doesn't feel like a no-limit zone at all, but the fewer people the better. It means I get more experience points. This game also has a skill system, but without leveling up, I can't use them. There are 3 exceptions. First, there's the skill that guy from Class D used last time, called Aura, the power that creates light like a torch. Lastly, there's small healing magic. Those are the 3 skills I can currently use. I can also use the shortcut keys I set up. I can even activate them while moving, which got me thinking, for example, moving my fingers in this way, or activating it manually like this. Although there are slight differences between the game and this world, in the end, it all worked surprisingly well. And I also discovered a few more surprising things. Let's see if anyone's around. I want to try something out. All right, void/shock. I'm not even surprised, since clearly I haven't learned this move yet. Hey! Are you kidding me? Whoa! Oh my god! Whoa! 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 Shit! A blinding aura shot out straight from my bat. Of course, the bat couldn't handle it and disintegrated on the spot. And then I lost consciousness. Just at that moment, the chubby loser from Class D happened to pass by, and he saw me. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in the guild's infirmary. They found me passed out near the slime area. I could only deny it completely, saying I was just tired from getting lost all day. Of course, I couldn't explain that to her in detail. She'd think I was crazy. But I don't want to be seen as someone who can't even handle slimes. Damn it. It seems like I'm about to get a 5th debuff. Back home, there's truly nothing like home. Just look at this place. That's the reason, isn't it? I ended up suggesting I should cut back on my meal portions. My mom seemed surprised. This is my favorite courage and croquette.
I want to go on a diet.
Oh, the people in this house. Do they really not see that I already look like a barrel? In 1 month, Kariya, Isamu, and Yuma will face off. According to the storyline, we'll manage to beat Kariya, but a higher-ranking class will still push us down, making a world-class battle inevitable. So, I need to train hard to be fully prepared. While eating, I was calculating my next steps. But this family is a problem too. At night, I wrote down the things that are holding me back. And everything that happened today, achieving something like that, when it shouldn't even be possible, is unusual. Can others do the same? If I'm the only one, doesn't that make me pretty awesome? I fear I might disrupt the original storyline, which isn't good. An unpredictable future is dangerous for me. The first priority is to improve my skill training. So the next day, I went back to the dungeon. My mom immediately asked, since I looked a bit rough yesterday. But before I could answer, my little sister jumped out, her eyes sparkling like a kitten's, wanting me to take her along. No! Here I am, back at the guild. But in the crowd, I accidentally bumped into someone. It's that fat guy from Class D. He immediately started shouting. Bad luck. I really didn't want to deal with him. But then he asked if I had a companion behind me. It's my little sister, and she looks angry. She charged up and demanded that the Class D guy apologize for bumping into me. Damn it, now he's mad. This isn't how I wanted things to go at all. But this guy doesn't hit girls. Thankfully, he still has some decency. He stormed off in anger, though he didn't miss the chance to sarcastically tell me to live up to my Class E rank. Finally he's gone. Wait! My sister also sighed in relief. I immediately scolded her, and she fired back with an earful. This is exactly why I find this family to be such a headache. She really wants to go exploring in the dungeon, huh? I told her to go ahead and register, but since you need to be over 15 to register, I'm just hoping she doesn't know that. I'll buy myself a little time. She happily went off to register right away. Meanwhile, I quickly headed to the guild's library. I need to figure out why a skill I haven't learned yet is somehow working. One possible explanation is automatic spellcasting. In the game, you could use a shortcut key, but how would that work here? And that manual method? This world still has too many mysteries for me. I started researching and reading about automatic spellcasting. So to use magic, you have to pray. Oh, it's simpler than I thought. Then I moved on to reading about manual spellcasting for those who have mastered it.
Huh?
The description for manual casting is completely blank, even though I can actually do it. I finally came to a conclusion. Being able to use an unlearned skill isn't a standard thing in this world. In other words, I might be the only one who can do it. Or maybe it's hidden. I'll keep it as an emergency backup, but using this skill is really difficult. Damn it, I seriously can't pull it off. There's still so much I don't understand. There are quite a few people from the academy here. Unexpectedly, I ran into that fat guy here. Here he comes again. How annoying. He quickly figured out that I was researching skill casting and assumed that's why I couldn't beat a slime. Damn it. Meanwhile, my little sister is still patiently waiting for me outside the guild. Just then, a group of students walked past her. They were whispering about a student who was defeated by a slime, and it seems that the person in the rumor is me. So she immediately demanded more details, in a hurry. As for me and the fat guy over here, it turns out he had seen me looking pathetic 2 days ago. Sure enough, my 5th debuff has shown up. At that time, when my staff shattered, I collapsed. It looked as if I had been defeated by a slime. How humiliating. And because I couldn't beat a slime, he wanted to protect me. Naturally, because they're short on people to run errands. Or in other words, a slave. I immediately refused. Once again, he unleashed his aura, and this time, it only affected me? Damn it, this guy is only stronger than me. I can't beat this guy. He started shouting, saying that I'm just a small fry for daring to say no to his demands.
After all, you're the weakest guy in this room.
Ugh, this bastard isn't wrong. There's no place for me at school. They even wish I would disappear. And soon enough, I'll be gone from the classroom. I knew it. That's just how this world is. The people around started to hear what was happening and spread the story. This really sucks. In the end, my tears spilled over. And the fat guy called everyone over to watch me cry. But suddenly, an image of a family meal appeared in my mind. My little sister rushed over and shoved the fat guy aside.
Stay away from Oni.
That was when I realized this world isn't hopeless. There's still a place for me. But first, I need to handle this situation. My little sister took my hand and pulled me away. But of course, that fat guy wouldn't allow it. My sister was scared, and all I could do was apologize. He kept using that aura trick of his. Even though tears were streaming down her face, my sister glared at him without blinking. This stubborn girl. And then he was about to hit her. Hey! I charged at him, as if an invisible force was pushing me. I grabbed him by the neck. Damn it, no, my body moved on its own. That's Butao. But seeing this, the fat guy got even more aggressive. He roared in my face, cursing furiously. The others around us just nosily laughed. He shouted, telling me to let go of him. But no, the Butao within me held on tightly. He was truly enraged. Damn, this situation is about to get really bad. Just then,
That's enough!
Someone rushed over and ended the mess between the two of us fat guys. She offered to take my place in the fight. The chubby guy from Class D also seemed weary, because this girl was fully armored from head to toe. At this point, my little sister finally stopped crying. The person who arrived was none other than the rank 2 student from Class A, Tenma Akira-san. She absolutely didn't want to see 2 schoolmates brawling like this. Naturally, since she's incredibly strong, she'll take control of the situation. My luck isn't all that bad, is it? No, it's still bad. Just look at that guy's face. He's not letting this go easily. Even though he agreed in front of Tenma, he outright told me he'd remember this. What a pain. As for Tenma, she's a beautiful girl, the 2nd strongest in our grade. But she's under a curse, forced to live in a bulky, unattractive body, so she always wears armor to hide it. By the way, it seems she had been watching the whole time and praised me and my sister, saying we fought well. Wow, what a generous girl. After that, Tenma left. I collapsed onto the ground, completely exhausted. My little sister rushed over and hugged me. Sobbing, she kept apologizing and thanking me. My heart felt like it would melt. I need a plan to sort this out. I was about to keep talking, but I told her to move elsewhere since there were too many nosy people around here. We headed to a row of benches in the park. Turns out, Kano knew from the start that the Adventurers Guild doesn't accept anyone under 15. How embarrassing. She truly wants to become an adventurer. And another thing, Kano wants my attention. Since the entrance ceremony, she's felt that I've been too distant, not even calling her by name. All I could do was apologize. Now that I think about it, Butao's intense feelings back then clearly showed how much he cared for this girl. Thinking about it, he's actually not that bad, and I don't feel uncomfortable borrowing his body like this. So I've decided to make it up to her. I'll start by calling her name. Kano. I hope I'm imitating how Butao used to do it. In the end, I succeeded in cheering her up. Now we needed to head home. No, I told her to go home first. I had something to take care of. Naturally, I had to lie to Kano one more time. Then I returned home, covered in scratches and bruises. As expected, my parents were really worried. Haha, I'm fine, really. Mom said that Kano seemed to be sulking. She's such a strange kid. No, I mean she's too sharp. She's doubting whether I actually went to the dungeon or not. Looks like she's even angrier than I thought, so I ended up promising to take her into the dungeon one day. See? That's always a good way to handle things. But when I tried to backtrack Kano immediately changed her expression. What I actually did was find the chubby guy from Class D and apologize to him. I knelt down and apologized right there in the middle of the crowd, like this. Sure enough, the chubby guy was stunned and couldn't believe it. I didn't care about pride. I just needed to eliminate any potential threats to myself and my family. As expected, my earnest attitude convinced him, and he decided to move on to step 2. There are many more important things I need to do, and eventually, I'll have to return to my original world. So a few beatings like this are nothing. Plus, I owe this family. They've given me a warm place to stay. Of course, a part of that is because of Butao. Now, time to sleep. Tomorrow's the start of another week. I need to level up, because getting stronger will allow me to do more, so that when that event arrives, I'll be able to protect my family. As always, my little sister will announce that someone's here. That's right, that person. At first, I didn't recognize her, but when I opened the door, I realized Kaoru had come to invite me to school. Apparently, there's some kind of agreement between Butao and Kaoru, so she comes by every morning. I searched through Butao's memories, and sure enough, there was some kind of promise between them about this, but I still can't remember the details. Walking like this, one in front and one behind, makes me feel a bit awkward. No, with Kaoru's personality, she's probably the one who hates this the most. I need to say something, but I don't know what. Suddenly, Kaoru stopped.
I heard you were defeated by a slime.
Damn it! That long-haired jerk. By the way, she also informed me that she and Akagi Yuma had formed a team, so she wouldn't be able to join mine. Oh, I see. But the Butao inside me doesn't understand. He reacted really badly to this. That's right. They're the key to saving this world, and they've already joined forces. Wow, I feel sorry for my neighbor Suta. The good thing is that everything is still going according to the game. I walked into the classroom just after Kaoru. Immediately, someone came over to ask about my slime defeat. Damn it, they're way too enthusiastic about this. It's worse than I thought. I didn't expect Kaoru and Yuma to speak up for me. After all, they're the two most influential people here. He even came over to encourage me, saying that everyone's still worried about what happened on Friday, including himself.
Oh yeah,
was all I could manage to say. Look at this guy. He's the character that players would take control of. And now he's saying lines that aren't even in the original storyline. I need to be more careful, but the others still won't leave me alone. And that's when my Butao nickname first started. This is strange because getting the nickname Butao this early is way ahead of the story. Well, this main character really is kind-hearted. I wonder if the nickname Butao came up early because he stepped in earlier. Anyway, I still feel out of place. Then the teacher announced that if we want to enter the dungeon, we need to form groups. So now he's giving us a chance to introduce ourselves again. Perfect. I've been waiting for this. It starts with Akagi Yuma. Then comes Kaoru. Everyone takes turns standing up. Now I really regret that all I said to Yuma earlier was a single yeah. Being so bland in conversations will make it hard to find teammates. I reminded myself to be friendlier and more outgoing.
Finally, Narumi
Souta. I use a bat as a weapon, aspiring priest, and please and thank you. Come on. Look, my aura stretches 8,000 miles. Damn it, not a single clap like I'd hoped. I'm fading away here, and it seems like Kaoru is really embarrassed by me. Even the teacher is at a loss for words? All right, the announcement is over. Everyone started getting to know each other and forming teams on the way to the orientation area. They really don't care about my existence. Maybe going solo in the dungeon isn't so bad. The teacher took us on a tour of the arena, the place for skill training, then to the infirmary, and he suggested we form groups of 3 to 5 people for safety. That's terrible news for me. Then he left. My classmates started rushing to find teammates. So that's it. I'm not the only one feeling anxious. Everyone wants to form a team quickly to level up. Suddenly, a guy bumped into me, but he yelled at me instead of me daring to yell back. Forget it, I just need to try to find a teammate. The guy who looks almost like a hero definitely wouldn't agree to join my team. The girl with dark skin flat out rejected me too. Damn it, even that otaku guy has found a team already. Here he is. Shit, I can only sit there in despair. Everyone else has already found their team. And Akagi had no trouble at all. The girls just ran to him. What? He turned her down? Is he waving at me? Oh my god. Seriously? This has to be a joke. Look at his teeth. They're sparkling. As much as I want strong teammates, forming a team with him would mess up the story. This would be dangerous for me. I've survived in this world because I know it. So I decided to turn him down. But, what reason do I even have to reject him? I want to use Kaoru as an excuse, but I can't right now. She wouldn't be happy. Oh, and she's looking over here too. She's going to team up with Akagi. Right. Come on over and take this guy away from me. Oh, she turned down the other two and joined our group. And just like that, the 3 of us formed a team. Well, this is the perfect time to create a conflict situation, just like in the game. Let's get started. But the moment Kaoru looked at me as I spoke, I understood, of course. In the story, Butao attacked the protagonist out of jealousy, and Kaoru had a reason to step in and stop me. Then Yuma called out to me and asked me what I was trying to say. Kaoru immediately looked at me, and I decided not to do anything too extreme. So I asked him why he became an adventurer. Both Kaoru and I waited for his answer. Let's see how this protagonist character will answer such a personal question. Look, Kaoru is really listening with all her heart, and his answer was that he admired the famous adventurers. Oh, how wonderful. Keep in mind, in the game, he was just a shell for the player to control. But in this world, he has his own convictions. A first-year high school student. And that's when I decided to treat him, to support him as a person. So, I gave him a compliment.
I think what you said was very admirable.
As expected, Kaoru was taken aback. He blushed from the compliment. By the time we reached the 2nd floor, the orientation had ended. The teacher told us we could either keep going up or do whatever we wanted, but we'd be back to regular classes tomorrow. All right, I'll go rent a weapon. Suddenly, Yuma called me back. He invited me to join them on the 3rd floor of the dungeon. Oh, sounds fun. And there they are, the legendary team that will save the world.
A few days earlier, after finishing her bath, Kaoru received a message from her friend, and on Monday morning she went straight to Suta's house. It was always Kano who answered the door, but she didn't look too pleased to see Kaoru. Kaoru asked how Suta was doing, having heard he'd been hospitalized. Kano replied that her brother was fine, yet Kaoru seemed eager to know more details. Without saying more, Kano ran inside, calling for her brother and announcing that she's here again. Clearly, Kano didn't like Kaoru, and Kaoru understood. It was only natural, especially after she'd been distant with Suta since spring. And what happened afterward, well, everyone knew about it. Kaoru only wanted to cancel that magical marriage contract. If they kept being this gentle with each other, it would only feel worse for both of them. I want to cancel it, the magical marriage contract we wrote back then. Kaoru feared that if she did, he might become stubborn about it again. That time, Suta had wanted them to stick together, and it somehow turned into a promise that she'd reluctantly upheld until now. She reminded herself that she had to turn things around with that promise, and even if Suta was in the middle of breakfast, he'd have to leave at once. Kaoru had also noticed that since the school opening ceremony, this friend had been acting strangely. It felt as if he had matured somehow, completely unlike his usual self. He used to constantly question Kaoru, even over simple things like not answering her phone. He'd always use their childhood friendship as an excuse to corner her. But now, no phone spamming. and he wasn't even staring at her chest. Kaoru couldn't believe a person's nature could change so easily. Had he lost interest in her, or was he just pretending? Kaoru remained doubtful. So she decided to test him, making a snide remark about hearing that he'd been defeated by a slime yesterday. Was he really going to stay silent? Kaoru pressed on, announcing that she'd teamed up with Akagi, so she couldn't join Suta's team. Something that would have crushed him before. But in the end, he still didn't react like the Suta she knew. He even said,
"I see, good for you. It's really reassuring that you have Akagi-kun."
For some reason, Kaoru's eyes softened. Suta wasn't someone who could hide his feelings this well. If he'd truly lost interest in her, then she should feel happy, right? But no, there was an inexplicable feeling, like a sense of loss. And then, one of the guys in class came over and started mocking Suta. If Kaoru genuinely didn't care about him, she shouldn't be listening to these insults from their classmates. In the end, she couldn't hold back anymore. She decided to speak up.
Hey!
Luckily, that was also when Akagi Yuma stepped in to defend Suta. From that day forward, she only wanted to be on the same team as him. But that magical marriage contract still weighed heavily on her mind. As long as it existed, Kaoru couldn't fall in love with anyone else. The contents of the contract were hazy in her memory, and even the punishment clause on it, she probably couldn't remember it. Kaoru went to a weapons rental shop. By chance, she ran into the protagonist there. Akagi Yuma immediately invited her to join his team. The reason was simple. She was the first one to stand up against Class D back then, and so she agreed. Incidentally, there was no punishment in that contract, but who knows if Kaoru remembers that. Their team of 4 began dungeon conquests, and Kaoru believed that not having Suta around would help her focus more. Here's Naoto, an apprentice mage, and here's Sakurako, an apprentice priest. The whole team was busy leveling up, preparing for a showdown with Korea from Class D in a month. With the aura he had unleashed, it seemed his level was over 10. Leveling up not only increased strength and base stats, but also allowed them to choose their professions, like samurai or saint. Currently, no one in Kaoru's team has chosen a profession. They're all apprentices. But she believes in them. These individuals are the best in the class. They'll make it, and they even have their own secret weapon. Later, she intentionally joined Akagi to team up with Suta on the Dungeon Exploration Orientation Day. As soon as she sensed danger from Suta, she tried to steer the conversation away. Clearly, she understood Suta better than even the current Suta. The two talked about the day they went dungeon crawling, almost leaving Suta out of it. But then he changed the topic, likely to keep Suta from knowing about their situation. Maybe he was worried Suta would feel hurt. Kaoru realized that Akagi cared about Suta's feelings. But what about her and Suta? Kaoru's gaze softened. Then Yuma asked what Suta wanted to talk about. Kaoru felt a bit uneasy, looking at her chubby friend. Unexpectedly, Suta asked why Akagi wanted to become an adventurer. She thought it might be a snide question, but she wanted to hear the answer anyway. Kaoru also wanted to agree with Akagi, as his goal was similar to hers, but no. There was another reason. She had enrolled in this academy and become an adventurer to distance herself from Suta. Saying that out loud would be way too harsh, wouldn't it? The next day, Akagi announced he'd be adding someone else to the team. This made Kaoru's face fall. No doubt it was Suta. Naoto didn't object. But inviting someone who'd been defeated by a slime could hurt their reputation in the class. More importantly, what did Suta think about this? That's right. Akagi was going to try inviting him anyway, just to lend a hand to the struggling Suta. Even knowing it might cause issues for the other 3, it wouldn't matter if they could defeat Korea from Class D. Faced with such confidence, Naoto had nothing left to say. Kaoru stayed silent, but she genuinely hated this and didn't want to bring up her relationship with Suta, even if he'd lost interest in her. From what Kaoru knew of Suta, he definitely wouldn't pass up this opportunity.
I went ahead and asked Yuma, "Why would you choose someone like me?" And just look, Kaoru and Yuma were both stunned. Not what you expected, huh? Yuma replied that it was because I had encouraged him. That's right. It was when I'd praised his reason in the dungeon.
So what? The first thing you need to do is fight Korea. He's level 11. He's like a monster, stronger than a bear. You shouldn't add dead weight like me.
Was I going overboard? But I kept going, saying a teacher wouldn't expel someone just because they were in Class E. Yeah, I was talking about myself. And by the way, I told the truth, that if I joined their team, I'd only end up looking miserable. I'll stand out like a sore thumb. Those blunt words made the other members stop and think, especially Kaoru at this moment. I firmly brushed Yuma's hand aside, much to her surprise.
The Souta she knew wasn't this decisive or mature. Kaoru could only guess that Souta had changed. It turned out she was the one who'd refused to realize he'd changed, and she had misunderstood, thinking Souta was trying to interfere with her relationship with Yuma, so that was it. Kaoru also realized something else. She had underestimated Souta.
I really went solo in this dungeon. It's been tough, because this monster is pretty strong, and fast too. But once I got used to this body, as long as the strength difference isn't too big, I can still handle it. And I successfully reached level 4. This also marks 1 week since I was transported to this world. I've never regretted going solo in the dungeon. It's better to keep a distance from the main characters. Stopping here for today would be fine. But I decided to head down to the 5th floor. Each floor is connected by a spiral staircase like this. Wow, I still can't believe I made it to level 4. The 5th floor. Before reaching level 4, leveling up becomes drastically harder. Because of that, this became the bare minimum for those professional adventurers with jobs. Based on that setup, this place is filled with traps. One of them is right here, the broken bridge. I still remember the chill I felt when I first saw it. First, you cross the bridge, and then you'll draw the aggro of an orc. Wait until the orc uses its war cry skill to call its friends over. Then, carefully run back across the bridge and cut it down. The damage the orcs take from falling will count as kills for you, which is a great way to rack up experience. It's getting late, so I'll just check on the bridge for now. I can't wait for tomorrow. And there's one more thing, a brilliant trick, and the main reason I'm here. Oh, it's on this side. That's the gate. If it's like the game, then this should lead to the Adventurer Academy. If I can make use of it, I could get an extra 4 hours for each hunting trip. Isn't that amazing? But the strange thing is, no one else ever uses this gate. It's similar to the slime room on the 1st floor. These places are really useful for a player like me. Alright, let's try activating the gate. I'll just use autocasting. And then, the space really transformed. This is the lower level of the academy. I immediately look for a way to get upstairs. Since it's the weekend, there's no one here, but I need to get out fast before anyone notices.
What are you doing there?
Damn, that's Professor Murai. In response to the professor's question, I could only lie and say I left something behind on Friday and remembered it on my way back from the dungeon. Of course, since it's already night, I had to lie carefully. I wonder if he knows about the gate. Probably not. Then he walked away. So it's clear that this gate isn't public knowledge. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked what I was doing here. But maybe he's just pretending not to know. Alright, let's assume everyone knows about this gate. But tomorrow, I'll still use the regular entrance to the dungeon just in case someone gets suspicious. The next day, I return to the bridge. It's a fantastic spot to farm experience points. The first thing I need to do is check the safety of the bridge. Then I'll go back, grab my weapon, and try again. Phew, done. Orcs are slow, but their attack power is high, so I need to be careful. What? A guy who's about to die? I immediately ran over to help him, but he whispered that his friend is over there.
Please.
And when I looked over there, oh my god, he was being swarmed by a whole group of orcs. I was shaking with fear. My legs almost froze, but somehow I managed to rush over, swinging my staff and slamming it right into the head of the nearest one. But I could only pull one of them away from the group, so I turned back and quickly took the guy with me. There was no other way. It was the best choice at the time, and once I got him across the bridge, I started doing my thing. Don't think I was only after the experience points. If I didn't cut the bridge, they'd kill me too. Of course, I had to wait a bit for all of them to get onto the bridge before swinging my knife. Damn it, they're moving too fast. I still have one more side of the bridge to cut. Shit! Finally, it's cut. No matter how many times I do this, it still gives me chills. The screaming of those monsters is terrifying. But what choice do I have? For the experience points, I'll have to do this many more times. Luckily, that guy helped me cut one side of the bridge. He received medical treatment afterward. He wanted to thank me, but I had already slipped away. Later, I heard news about that group. Their party had 6 people severely injured, and 2 of them had died. Even though I knew it wasn't my fault, something still didn't feel right. The thrill of exploring this world was gone. Instead, it was replaced by countless suspicious, eerie things. So I made a decision, just as Kano came over to check on me.
Lee, you okay?
I could only tell her that I was fine, but at that moment, a bad feeling rose in my heart. A feeling of dread about Kano and my own loved ones.
All right, Kano.
I decided I would take her to the dungeon, even if it was against the law. Kano was surprised when she heard that. I then told her about a back door. She seemed worried because we were breaking the rules, but I convinced her that becoming stronger as preparation wasn't a bad thing. Besides, there's also a skill called fake that hides your identity, making people misidentify Kano's personal information. This would help us avoid getting caught for breaking the rules. She started to have doubts about my decision. Of course, I didn't want her to get bullied when she went to school. Becoming stronger would help her protect herself. Eventually, she agreed. But what's with that expression? According to the storyline, there's a main plot line where a large number of characters must die, and the Narumi family is just a bunch of background characters in that. That's why leveling up is essential, and you have to be strong enough too. Of course, I couldn't tell anyone about this, it was too dangerous. 1 week later, Kano and I were walking through the forest on the mountain. This is the detour to my school. I didn't want anyone to recognize her. We were going to use this place, the school basement, and then go through the teleportation gate. After that, we'd head straight to where the orc monsters were near the trap bridge. I started explaining the plan. Of course, Kano thought the task was too simple. She just had to cut one of the ropes of the bridge. Last week, we tried many ways to ensure everything went smoothly. In the end, I used scissors while she chose to use a machete. Now she was sitting and waiting, while I used my 100 kilos body to lure the monsters over. Okay, cut it! We both acted at the same time, and I had finished cutting the rope. Kano also swung the machete down. But damn it, it didn't cut. The monsters were already closing in, and Kano was terrified. Shit! I could only rush in and do her part for her. Done! But the monster managed to scratch my arm. Then they all fell down together. Phew, that was close! Kano could only apologize. Her face probably worried that I would scold her, and it was very likely my arm had been injured. But no, my arm was fine. And I was the one who should apologize, because I had dragged her into this. Suddenly something changed in Kano. She leveled up. She went straight to level 5 in one go. Haha, clearly those monsters gave a lot of experience. And at level 5 you can change your class. I hurried to stop her, because there's something newbies don't know. If you change your class now, your skill level will be capped, and you'll only be able to level up skills by 2 points. Instead, if you keep grinding, your skills will increase by an additional 3 points before upgrading. Later on, Kano would feel the difference. It might even shock her. Over here, Yuma's group also reached level 5. They were very excited because they could change their classes. Kaoru would choose fighter, Yuma would choose thief, and now there was only 1 week left before their battle with Korea's Class D. We took a quick snack break, and I reminded Kano not to tell anyone about the trap bridge. Before I could even continue, she had already grasped everything I was about to say. So clever. In short, that's exactly it. Someone will come to claim it for themselves. But isn't Kano curious about how I know all this? She said she was a little curious, so I replied that I just happened to know by luck. This girl trusts in Butao, which I find a bit strange. I wondered to myself, is she just putting on an act? Can I really trust her?
Meanwhile, Kaoru was in a sparring session, and her partner was none other than Yuma. Naturally, he won. To prepare for the duel, Yuma had asked Kaoru to train with him. After all, Kaoru's sword skills are exceptional, and the two of them were growing closer and closer. This time, Kaoru tried to imitate the fighting style Korea often used. She believed this approach might help Yuma get familiar with it and give him an advantage against that guy. But even if Yuma defeated her, she still had to ask if he could actually beat Korea. Although Yuma was a passionate and confident guy, even he wasn't completely sure about that. The answer only made Kaoru worry even more. Pink and Naoto noticed that since reaching level 4, Yuma seemed quite down. They thought surrendering could be an option.
I can't withdraw.
But not for Yuma. He would never give up. He believed there was still a chance for an upset victory, even if Class E was at a disadvantage in both level and experience compared to Class D. Plus, he didn't want to give Class D a reason to call them cowards, so he had no intention of losing. Meanwhile, Kariya Isuma was also training. Over time, he'd leveled up and trained hard. How strong was he now? No one knew.
As for me, I took my sister out to buy shoes. 250,000 yen? Don't worry, sis. I've got the money.
Everyone was pushing themselves every day, even the big guy in Class D. Yuma, pink. And Naoto, and here was Kaoru, soaking in the bath. Her mind still lingering on the events from last time. Back then, Suda had rushed forward and held her hand, stopping her from crossing the street while the light was red. She had been completely distracted for days.
I asked her about Akagi Yuma's situation. Of course, my inquiry wasn't out of line. We know each other, after all. She gave a brief reply saying they'd reach level 6 within a month and that Yuma was highly motivated. But I knew that just being level 6 would still be a challenge. Finally, the match day arrived. This match was called the Kariya event. Honestly, he could die. Yuma's level looked decent, but that alone wouldn't be enough to win. At level 6, he'd at least need a special weapon. Even Mr. Murai, the teacher, came to quietly observe, and both Class D and Class E had shown up in full. The most worried one was Kaoru, who had already started praying. But suddenly I realized something. Shit, really? Yuma might actually win this match. And so their battle began. The Class D students had complete faith in their class's top fighter. When Kaoru looked over at Class E, everyone was holding their breath in silence. Even the big guy from Class D came over, trying to bother Pink a bit.
Long time no see, Sakurako-chan.
Fortunately, Naoto quickly stepped in and pushed his hand away. The big guy knew it was too early to start celebrating victory. All right, the fight officially began. Kariya opened with a powerful strike, his speed incredible. Damn it, he swung that huge sword as if it weighed nothing. I couldn't even see it. As expected, this guy is strong. Thanks to the trap bridge, I had reached level 8. But even then, if I fought him, I wouldn't stand a chance. Poor Kaoru's heart was racing with worry. Their group had all reached level 6, which was the physical ranking. Kaoru believed that even a level 7 fighter could be weaker than her. It was possible to turn the tables without relying on level alone. But with Kariya at level 11 and his physical strength, both of them could pull off some unexpected moves, so they were being cautious. That was when he brought out his secret weapon. Kariya closed in again and swung his massive sword. Yuma swiftly slipped back to dodge, but Kariya didn't seem to be in any rush. Yuma taunted him, saying his attacks lacked force. Was he afraid of something? The two drew closer to each other. In truth, Yuma was also holding back. Both were just testing the waters, so now was the time. Yuma would reveal his secret weapon. It was the static sword, a strike that reduced the opponent's agility and had a chance to paralyze. A truly troublesome weapon. And best of all, it suited Yuma's strategy in this match perfectly. He took his stance, then launched forward like a bullet, heading straight for Kariya. He was going on the offensive. It was a lightning-fast attack, but it looked like Kariya had blocked it. It was clear now, Yuma was just toying with Kariya, without using his secret weapon yet. In other words, he was waiting for the right moment to land a hit. The crowd immediately fell for Yuma's feint, thinking he'd lost his cool. But they were wrong. The static sword was something Kariya Isuma didn't know about. Kariya, still cautious, hadn't unleashed any powerful attacks yet. His preferred fighting style was to take a hit, then counter with a heavy swing. Here it was. He started to raise his arm. This was the moment Yuma had been waiting for. Right now, Yuma struck with all his strength, stabbing with the static sword and using the double sting skill. Damn! He managed to pierce a hole in Kariya's armor. The day before, the big guy from Class D was kicked out, and the one who kicked him out was a top student from an upper class, So Kuki from Class 1B. Suo complained that Sakura had used one of her people, and still lost. She emphasized that she didn't want the class rankings to be disrupted, so for the match against Class E, Class D wasn't allowed to lose. After all, she'd used her influence to get the arena opened. Sakura, lying on the ground, grabbed Suo's leg and insisted that Kariya would not lose. She believed in his hard work, but to Suo, these words sounded hollow, and she gave Sakura another kick, saying that the ranking system was created to disprove the notion of hard work alone. Meanwhile, Kariya said nothing. He just stood there watching. Sakura had never lost faith in him, But instead of supporting his classmate, Kariya flattered Suo, admitting he couldn't beat her. Was Sakura starting to doubt his abilities? These sudden, backhanded remarks left Sakura completely stunned. Kariya bowed deeply and apologized to Suo, saying he believed only results could serve as a proper justification. This seemed to please Suo. Meanwhile, the big guy had been punished for his actions in the library, where he'd backed down from Tenma of Class A. Suo was surprised that Kariya didn't try to plead on behalf of his classmate, Sakura. He said he'd only come to apologize as the Class D representative, and that was it. As for Sakura, she could do as she pleased. What a practical and cold-hearted guy. And now, he had known about the static sword for a long time. While Yuma thought he'd created an opportunity to win, believing that slowing down his opponent would let him see all his movements, it wasn't the case. The previous attack hadn't done a thing. And Kariya immediately countered with a powerful kick to Yuma.
My movements, huh?
Damn, something's off. It turned out that Kariya had switched his armor to one resistant to status effects. The kick made Yuma cough up blood, but Kariya remained cautious, wary that Yuma might still have other tricks up his sleeve. Then Yuma slowly got to his feet. The crowd erupted in cheers. Only his friends understood. He didn't have any more secret moves left. But maybe they should still hold on to some hope, right? Damn, Yuma was lifted like a rag doll. Such overwhelming strength. Yuma had no chance of victory left. Even he couldn't believe it. Kariya kicked him again, sending him flying. And while Yuma was still on the ground, Kariya raised his sword. A massive, deadly strike came crashing down. Yuma was completely incapacitated. Pink immediately rushed forward to stop Kariya.
Please stop already.
The big guy from Class D immediately threw Naoto's previous words back at him. Mr. Mirai quietly left. Clearly, there was no miracle today. The result of Kariya and Yuma's battle, Kariya won. But due to Pink's intervention, Kariya was forced to stop, and naturally, the fight didn't need to go any further. The crowd immediately erupted, especially Class D, and so Class E suffered a crushing defeat against Class D. Kaoru and Naoto rushed over to take care of their friend. Kariya declared boldly that the weak must obey the strong, and from now on they would have to follow orders.
Some of you may go up to D class by the time you graduate, but that's it. You're all just a bunch of slaves. And with that, I'm giving all of you an order. The upper class said that they wanted gophers. If you have a problem with that, I'll duel with all of you anytime, just like this guy.
And so, a dark future opened up for Class E, because of a defeat that wasn't even in the storyline. At this moment, the main character had to accept that he was too weak. Seeing his friends in despair, Yuma forced a smile and apologized to everyone, saying he would win next time. Of course, no one believed it anymore. They only appreciated his sincerity. As for me, I had expected to be a bit annoyed. But no, the gap between the classes is something I can't control. Though I feel regret for Akagi-kun, this loss isn't something that will deviate the storyline too far. Instead, the real issue is who gave Kariya the solution to counter the static sword. That sword is a powerful item, and obtaining it is extremely difficult. It's an item that people in this world can't just get by simply wishing for it. The same goes for Kariya's armor. Now I'm convinced there's someone else playing. Someone told him how to obtain a static sword, and then someone told Kariya how to counter it. Alright, for safety's sake, I'll assume they exist. According to the original storyline, crushing Akagi here would just become a demerit, no matter how you look at it. I can't figure out their motive. What I need to do is follow the course of events from here on out, just in case these players might end up becoming my enemies. Oh, there's someone standing by the roadside, and is he looking at me? Fortunately, Yuma's condition wasn't serious, and he quickly recovered. Naoto suddenly called out to him and offered a sincere thank you. After all, they believed that the upperclassmen had seen through their strategy of using the static sword. They could only encourage him, saying that this match wasn't meaningless after all. Yuma thanked them for that and told his friends to hurry back to class. Of course, Kaoru noticed that he was hiding his true feelings. He was only doing it so that others wouldn't worry, and at this moment, he just wanted to be alone. Naoto felt a powerless anger. Meanwhile, that guy actually came to find me, and I quickly recognized him. It was Kikuchi from the adventurers group that got into trouble. He came to thank me. He told me the whole story. One of his group members was accidentally hit. They had tried to resolve it peacefully. And as an apology, those people gave them information about a treasure location. but it turned out to be the lair of the Orc Lord. That's why I saw so many orcs attacking at once. I apologized, saying that if I had arrived sooner, the situation wouldn't have been so bad. Kikuchi, too, kept blaming himself. We stood talking for a little while longer. Kikuchi declared that he was grateful to me. Huh? Isn't just a thank you enough? Oh, but he looked really serious about it. Suddenly, his expression changed. He started cursing loudly, because it was those people who caused his teammate's death, the group led by that fat guy from Class D. Of course, he recognized him.
How did the orc taste?
Damn it! You bastard!
That ruthless fat guy actually had the nerve to laugh and mock, saying that it was the price to pay for little fish who dared to refuse their invitation. What a jerk. Fortunately, before they could get into a fight, I managed to hold him back. He couldn't do much with a body like this. And look at his teammates. They were all the same, all sneering at the pain of others. This is a harsh reality, just like how the school also sides with them and oppresses Class E. Of course, I can't speak out, let someone else do it. After that, the group laughed and walked away. At that moment, I made a decision. Though I couldn't promise Kikuchi anything.
One day, I'll take them on.
Of course, Kikuchi couldn't believe I could actually do that. They're strong. Haha. I just flexed a bit, telling him that I'm not weak either, and he's probably the only one to hear that. Huh? Did he actually believe me? Anyway, I hope these words can bring him some comfort.
Kaoru accidentally saw Suta helping an injured person on the street. With kindness and gentleness,
I started having this kind of dream lately. I'm a pupa. One day I was given the chance to become a butterfly. With high hopes, I turned into a butterfly. But what awaited me was somewhere different from what I had imagined. The hope I discovered was crushed. The guy I looked down on is steadily moving forward.
It's that dream again, and waking up every morning leaves her exhausted. Dawn has just broken. Kaoru will go to Suta's house and ask him to walk to school together. As always, one walks ahead and one walks behind. Suddenly, she notices someone. It's Yuma. He's carrying things for the upperclassmen. Then someone else steps in to share the work. It's Naoto. Losing means he has to do the chores. Both understand this and don't complain. Another person steps forward to share the load with him. It's Kaoru.
Oh, I'm not doing it. A 100-kilo debuff is more than enough, plus we're not close enough for me to do that.
In Class 1E, the fat guy from Class D is lounging around, bragging that his older brother was invited to a party with a branch of the Colors gang. Of course, that gang is famous enough to make others marvel just by hearing about it. And the seat the fat guy is in just so happens to be Naoto's. How frustrating. Today, they'll go up to the 6th floor, and Yuma asks Kaoru what she thinks about it. She doesn't seem too happy. She decides to use an excuse to decline. Actually, she just runs alone.
I stopped dungeon diving with Yuma and the others. I used to feel comfortable in that party, but it started feeling like I'm being forced into something.
The next day, Kaoru goes to ask Suta to walk to school again. As she walks, she thinks about what excuse she could use to avoid Yuma's group today. Her face clearly shows worry. She even stops along the way. Suta hesitantly asks if something has happened recently.
Ever since we entered this school, Suta has kept a clear distance between us. And now, even he's worried about me. No, I was just shocked that Yuma lost.
Are you disappointed?
His words hit right to her heart, causing Kaoru to feel a bit flustered. She really never thought he would lose. She admits to Suta that, yes, she was disappointed.
I feel like I can't go on. I'm not confident I can keep going to an adventure school.
Oh, that guy really is important to her.
Just do what you can. That's good enough.
Suta's words make her think, isn't it Yuma who should be disappointed the most? But even after losing, he still doesn't want to give up. Could that also be seen as a kind of victory? This time, Suta enters the class first. As soon as Kaoru sees Yuma, Kaoru lowers her head and apologizes to him and the group for missing the dungeon dive yesterday, and promises to join them today. Oh, that's a very sincere apology. They praise her for being a brave girl. No one blames her. Even Pink thinks Kaoru looked so cute when she apologized. And so, Kaoru's inner turmoil was resolved.
Oh, don't mind me. I'm just a tiny, insignificant tadpole.
That day, they reached the 6th floor and fought the White Wolf. The monster was much stronger. Their group struggled quite a bit. Yuma even let Kaoru deal the finishing blow to the monster to earn more experience points. probably to make up for missing the dungeon dive yesterday. Kaoru didn't hesitate anymore and immediately delivered a horizontal slash to the monster. She successfully reached level 7.
I need to thank Suda.
Everyone rushed to congratulate her, knowing that each level after level 4 is very difficult to achieve. But the next day, Suda didn't come to school.
Kano leveled up again. Look how happy she is, even though she's leveled up countless times by now. It's been a month, and I've gotten the hang of a few things. Good monster hunting spots, trap bridges, and teleport gates. Places that we players discover, they aren't common knowledge in this world. Kikuchi has also confirmed this. But there's something that's been bothering me. It's about the game expansions, also known as DLCs. With our current level, I've decided for the two of us to advance to floor 7. And my goal isn't just leveling up, but also to unlock the Armored Knight class. A class that allows you to create and control golems. Sounds exciting, right? And this DLC is called Heart of the Golem. Honestly, I think the Armored Knight class is pretty flawed, because while you can ride a golem, they're so slow it could actually weaken the player. But regardless, since I can't log out of the game, there's no better class to aim for. She seemed startled when I mentioned that. Look, she's totally surprised. And then she immediately urged me to go there. This is also a great monster hunting area. Suddenly, Kano told me something. She's had the dual sword skill since the very beginning.
Huh? Why didn't you tell me sooner? I didn't, because I didn't understand it.
By the way, my first skill is Glutton. Damn, I'm jealous. As for this dual sword skill, two-sword style is an extra skill acquired from the high-ranking job, Samurai. This skill lets you equip a weapon in each hand and significantly boosts your hit rate. It's a high-ranking skill that increases your number of strikes. If you use a 2-hit skill with two-sword style, it'll deal 4 hits, making the wielder less vulnerable. I'd better assess it firsthand. Letting Kano fight a demon wolf is a good training exercise. I'll observe while she battles using the two-sword style.
Okay.
Where are you, demon wolf? Oh, here it is. The first one. Kano draws her dual swords and takes a fighting stance. I'll watch closely, and of course I'll jump in if anything unexpected happens. The battle begins, and Kano moves swiftly. The wolf opens its jaws wide, lunging at her. Kano skillfully slides along the ground to dodge its snapping jaws. Round 1 ends with the wolf biting into a tree. Damn, what are its teeth made of to be that strong? Kano is a bit wary of the wolf's strength. Being cautious is good. Now round 2 begins. The demon wolf lunges again, snapping even faster. But in just a blink, Kano slips to the wolf's left and slashes with her dual swords. With just a single attack, the wolf was defeated. Even I didn't expect that. Isn't that a bit too strong? Maybe everyone in this world has talent. Except for me. Luckily, she's my little sister and also my ally. Suddenly, a howl from a rag echoed. What could that mean? After that, we headed to the ruins. This place is the Heart of the Golem DLC. And here, something happened that I'll never forget. It became one of the most valuable life lessons for me. That this world has absolutely no time for preparation. We went down an underground path, passing walls covered with thousands of skulls. Then we found something. It was another teleport gate in this place. How convenient. I told my sister to quickly channel her magic into it. I plan to use this gate later. I came here for the Armored Knight class, but I also want the Faker skill. It's a skill from the Thief class. So my plan is to not change classes right at level 5. I'll wait until I've gained more levels, then choose the Thief class to get Faker. Finally, I'll switch to the Armored Knight class. My sister finished up. We'll rest here a bit before moving forward. It's an enormous castle. Naturally, since it's the Golem capital. Then we went inside. We passed by a huge tree. Shit. Luckily, this tree golem didn't attack us. It's a quest monster, and it has a large gemstone on its head, an item needed to complete the Armored Knight quest.
It's like a jewel. It can be sold for a high price.
That's right. If we go and meet someone, Obaba's shop on floor 10, but with our current level, we can't reach that place yet. What?
Do you want to play Carrot and Rabbit?
We need to keep looking around, because skeletons might appear here. Just as I said that, this area seems suspicious. This is the main room of the castle. Kano guessed there might be treasure inside, so I decided to check it out a bit. Damn, a dangerous-looking skeleton is sitting on the throne. It has horns and armor. It's definitely not an ordinary skeleton. I'm guessing it's at least level 8 and a rare monster. Kano noticed something strange at its feet. A chest? It's gotta be treasure.
Wanna fight it?
Ah, she's a greedy one. But with my instincts as a top player, I'm not on board with this. We'll only fight it after we complete the golem quest. Then we headed back outside. We appeared at the teleport gate and used it to return. The next day I went to school as usual, but Kaoru didn't seem quite herself today. Maybe it's because of what I said that made her like this. I've never seen that expression in the game. Because of that, I can't ask about the static sword right now. Kano pointed something out to me. I looked down at the ground. Shit, a small campfire. It looks fresh. This is definitely bad news for me. It means thinking of this place as a DLC area was wrong, but wait. If they were camping, that means they didn't use the teleport gate. At least I can rule out the possibility that they're players like me. Plus, they might still be around here. Sure enough, soon after, someone called out to us. He hurriedly asked if we had any food. They've been starving here. Oh, it seems he's so hungry he didn't hesitate to approach me, but I still raised my sword and asked why he was here. Turns out this group was hunting the warg yesterday, but they accidentally fell into a pit and found a tunnel leading to this place. I see. It seems they're not lying. The problem is, I can't go back unless I shake them off. The guy shouted louder than his stomach, demanding food. After a day of hunger, he's nearly at his limit. Kano offered them a pack of rice, but the guy was already asking for more. This group is really unpleasant. I really don't want to get involved with them. After eating their fill, they immediately wanted to explore the castle. I purposely showed concern for their health, hoping they'd back off. Unfortunately, it didn't work. Damn it! And judging by what he said, I'm sure they didn't use the teleport gate. Whatever, maybe they'll leave after fighting a few golems. Kano looked a bit regretful after having to give away her food, especially because they had an unbearable smell. But I didn't oppose giving them food. After all, they had been in the dungeon for a few days without eating. Of course, Kano expected that I'd just drive them away without giving anything since I'm higher level than them. But that was a bit short-sighted, because we actually don't know what level they are. Kano immediately wanted to use appraisal, but I had to stop her. The simple appraisal skill lets the user see the opponent's stats, but it also alerts the opponent that they've been appraised. And if used on monsters, it instantly raises their hostility toward the user. So using this skill on others is considered rude. There's a better way. Proactively suggest it to the person whose stats I want to check. In return, they can use simple appraisal on us as well. Strange, right? I haven't changed classes yet. Then it was our turn. 2 level 9 warriors and a level 10 thief. All of them had changed classes at level 5, so they each have only 3 skills. Kano immediately asked for my opinion. I decided that we'd take down 1 or 2 golems and then leave. We can't monopolize this hunting spot. The guy noticed us whispering and turned back suspiciously to ask. I could only tell them that we'd split up and hunt monsters separately. After all, this place is pretty spacious. We successfully defeated the tree golem. The gems we obtained will be sold when we're stronger. Oh man, this 100 Kylyu debuff is really exhausting. Meanwhile, she is very quick and full of energy. It's time to go home. Suddenly, those guys called us over, saying there was a strange skeleton in the castle. That's it. Since the monster looked pretty cool, he probably thought he could get something out of it, so he wanted to team up with us. I smiled brightly and turned him down. He immediately shouted, saying that his group was a branch of the Colors Guild. Ignoring them would be a bad idea, and this guy was the one that the fat kid from Class D mentioned. Alright, they were worse than the monsters in the castle, and I definitely didn't want to end up on their blacklist. I also shouldn't drag out the argument, so I agreed right away. The 5 of us entered the room. Now they're going to use simple appraisal on the monster. I didn't see any problem with it. There were 5 of us, and even if the monster was level 9 or 10, we wouldn't have to worry. But if it's higher level, then it could be dangerous. The blonde fighter just finished the simple appraisal. He panicked and ran off. What the heck is wrong with him?
That thing! It's level 25!
Shit! Kazuya! But he quickly realized there was no time to grieve. The Reaper was still coming toward us. I urgently told Kano to run. But somehow her heel had been slashed. It was her Achilles tendon. That bastard did it. He needed a sacrifice to survive. I immediately ran after them, leaving my sister behind. I wanted to say something, but it really wasn't necessary. I knew exactly what I was doing. And here is my neighbor, Butao. He's about to lose his mind. The others saw me running and thought it was the right choice. Damn them. At the same time, that monster began to open the door.
7 years ago, at a park near our house, Kaoru would often pass through here on her way to school and get bullied by a group of boys. The boys would take advantage of the fact that Kaoru practiced kendo, which forbade her from attacking unarmed opponents, so they used their bare hands to beat her. It was all just because she had outrun him in a marathon. Butao was always the one to rush in and stop them. And since Butao didn't study kendo, he could fight them without restriction. The result was that both of them got beaten up badly. This incident made the two of them grow closer. Kano saw everything. She admired her brother's actions, thinking that Butao was brave and chivalrous. In her heart, her brother was a hero. But now, Kano saw with her own eyes as her brother ran off, leaving her behind. Was this real?
Of course not, idiot.
Void/shock. A powerful light sent the monster flying backward. Hey, don't cry, Butao. The battle's just begun. And right after that, I dashed past Kano, positioning myself between her and the enemy. There was no other choice. I had to use everything I had. The monster was hurled back and slammed against the wall in the room. I explained to Kano that I had to pretend earlier so those guys wouldn't suspect anything or see me fight. Did you think I was gonna leave you here and run? Of course she would say no. She wouldn't dare say yes. Now, I could only tell her to try to drag herself as far as possible, even with her injured leg. Because with this level 25 monster, we couldn't escape unless I killed it. And I charged straight at the monster. What I need to do is change the terrain here. See this? My power. Now, we're both floating in midair. I figured out how I can use Void/shock. It's one of the skills I equipped when I used to play the game. Somehow, maybe due to a glitch, I can use it in this world. Based on the total mana I have, I activated 3 skills. First, Satanakia's stem cell, a skill from the highest grade job, Demon Lord. In exchange for a majority of your mana, you'll get a strong regeneration ability. Second, Shadow Step. This skill is also from a high-grade job, and it greatly increases your agility and evasion rate. And finally, Overdrive. For a set period of time, it massively increases the user's close-quarter combat ability, dynamic visual acuity, and reflexes. I look a bit less clueless now, don't I? At this point, I use simple appraisal on the monster. As expected, it's a boss. A skeleton noble with a strength of 25. I realized the monster was trying to assess the situation, but I absolutely wouldn't let it do that. I shot toward it like a bullet, using this level 10 body to increase kinetic energy and attack. Shit! My arm guard cracked. I can't show the same power as when I was a top ranker. I used a potion as doping to do it. Now I can use my skills. For only 2 minutes, and during that time I attacked as much as possible, using explosive speed and strength to press the enemy. Striking from the air down to the ground, I kept charging in, relentlessly engaging in close combat. But this time it raised its leg to push me back, while its other arm slashed at me. That was when I felt the terrifying power of his strike. An absolute cut. My body was slashed in a long line, and my hand was severed. He was fast enough to land another kick to my head. He had read my movements, so 40 seconds had passed. I felt like I had reached my limit. My vision was blurring, and my body felt torn apart. Shit! The pain of regenerating through Satanakia's stem cell was truly beyond expectation. This boss must be underestimating me. All right, you've awakened a sleeping monster in me.
Give me all you've got.
I'll show this boss what disaster mode Butao is like.
Surprised, aren't you? Old man, Ariel.
I slashed its back. At that moment, I used Aerial. This skill allows me to step anywhere, and it's my favorite for close combat. Now I have to make the most of it, as my doping effect only has 30 seconds left. Take this! But this time, it blocked me, and even emitted a powerful aura that pushed me back. Damn it! I didn't expect it to be this strong, even just using its aura. Ha ha ha, alright, here I come again.
Ani will win.
but that doesn't mean I'll stop being a birder to him. Because I'm weak. Oni is in such a condition. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but still, win. Oni, please win! Oni, please win! Please win!
I heard it. Butao and I both heard it. I roared and swung a powerful slash. I continued using my speed to overpower the opponent, attacking from all directions, giving it no time to predict my moves or counterattack. But it seems this boss is pretty calm. It's still observing my movements and trying to analyze them. Sure enough, it landed a precise strike on me, almost slicing me in half. My God, the force of the slash toppled an entire building. And just at the moment when that irritating boss thought it had won, I silently chanted a spell, Blade of Agaris, along with Air Break. Victory is only possible when it's caught off guard. All I can say is this battle is on a hellish level. A normal person at my level would die within 3 seconds against this boss. Sorry, Butao, I've truly reached my limit. But the thrill of fighting such a monstrous boss, it's truly addictive. That was fun. Meanwhile, Kano seemed very emotional. She had managed to crawl quite far, and now she could freely level up. Leveling up restores health, so right after that, she jumped down. She came looking for me, but I could no longer hold on, and my whole body collapsed to the ground. What's with that expression? Ah, my appearance has changed. Maybe that's why she looks shocked. Of course, Kano still recognized me. It's just that I've gotten thinner. The problem is, I can't move my legs at all. I told her in advance that I was going to pass out for a bit. Then Kano started crying. Waiting until I pass out to cry? Whatever, I'm really going to pass out for a while. After a while, I regained consciousness. The injury was mainly muscular damage since this body can't handle too much strain. I can't go to the Academy for Medical Services. They'd run an appraisal on me, so there's only one option left. Thankfully, the girl was with me. I asked her to carry me to the lower half of that fighter from earlier. We made it into a nameless grave, and to prevent Kano from blaming herself, I explained that I could have used this skill to help her escape. But it was me. I didn't want those guys to get wiped out by the boss. And since I was the one who brought her to the dungeon, she ended up getting hurt. So, I'm sorry. Somehow, the me that Kano knows and Butao are similar in nature. We can't turn a blind eye to others' struggles. After that, Kano changed the subject. She was worried that burying him here might attract attention, especially if those people came back. But there's no need to worry. The dungeon resets to its original state after a day. This castle does too, even down to the bodies. Still, it means something to me, as it's still the body of a person. But now I have to deal with the wrath of my stomach. Hey, don't look at me like that, how embarrassing. After that, we made it to the 10th floor. Kano bought a big basket of food. I'm gonna devour it all in one go. The reason we came to the 10th floor is for Obaba's shop, where I'll get some healing services. And once I'm done eating, I'll be back to my usual self as Butao. Right now, we're both level 19 and haven't changed classes yet. Of course, experiencing the sudden shift from being thin to fat again was a bit surprising. So that's how it is. Obaba's shop sells rare items, and I also reminded Kano to take care of her clothes. We could sell them back at the shop or take items from the shop and sell them outside. But only if we ask the shopkeeper for permission first. If they agree, we're good. I'll also stock up on my own gear here. And there it is, the entrance. See that round knob on the wall? Kano, way too excited, rushed up and twisted it. Damn it. And right at that moment, a monster appeared behind us. I was planning to fight the monster, so I didn't warn her. But who would have thought Kano would be so quick? The monster, the gatekeeper. She was caught completely off guard and couldn't react. At the same time, the massive gate, several meters thick, started to open. The gatekeeper was taken down before it could even attack her. Close call. The one who stepped in was none other than the shop's owner, Obaba herself, though she hates being called Obaba. DLC, the shopkeeper. Obaba, her real name is Furufuru, is a 1,000-year-old demon with a seductive figure. She has vast knowledge of dungeons and appears as an advisor to players. Her shop is located behind the gate, and by the way, she'll kill anyone who dares to call her an old lady to her face. We entered the shop. Well, actually, she's not just seductive, but also beautiful, though she smokes constantly. Kana was immediately drawn to the items made of mithril. If we sold these at the guild, they'd be worth at least 1,000,000 yen. But here, we're only allowed to pay using dungeon coins or magic stones. After the battle with those orcs and that skeleton guy, we have 138 copper coins. And I'm going to ask her to heal my wounds, which costs 3 copper coins. And here comes her healing. Maybe taking a closer look at me like this is necessary. Then, she clapped her hands once, and my entire body was instantly healed. But it seems like it's not quite done yet. She quickly grabbed my chubby face. Kano is here, so I'd appreciate it if she does this moderately. Turns out, the veins on my face are still visible, and my eyes are still red. By the way, she'll heal my eyes for free, as a way to encourage someone who has reached their limit like me. Now, I'm just curious why a level 25 noble boss appeared in a dungeon on the 7th floor. The thing is, if I hadn't been interested in the night class, I definitely wouldn't have encountered it. Maybe there's no conspiracy here, right? Alright, now we're starting our class change here. All we need to do is place our hands on this crystal orb to change classes. Kano finds it pretty ordinary, but when I touched it, it lit up, filling the whole room with light. We both successfully changed our class to thief. After buying a basket of goods, I told Furu that we'd be coming back, so hopefully she'll give us some favoritism. I also asked if anyone else had been to this place. Surprisingly, there was indeed someone. Huh? And they even come regularly. That means this person must be another player like me. Unfortunately, Furu can't remember human appearances, or maybe she's not allowed to. Strangely, that person didn't buy anything at all. They even asked Furu if anyone else had come here. No doubt about it, that person is definitely a player. If they were just a regular person, they wouldn't know about this shop, wouldn't encounter monsters when opening the door, and wouldn't have any magic stones. But the fact that they didn't buy anything is really strange. It's very likely that they're the one who interfered in Korea and Yuma's fight. It's even harder for me since I don't have any friends at school, and I ended up dozing off right in front of the shop while overthinking. I didn't expect to sleep all the way until the next day before finally waking up and heading home. Oh, Kano doesn't like this, so she immediately went upstairs as someone had shown up in my house. It was Koru, eating with my parents, and when she saw me come home, she immediately stood up from her chair. This is so awkward. We're familiar yet distant. I didn't go to school today, so... She was worried, so she decided to come over.
You were defeated by a slime again, or... so...
Shit. Actually, she just wanted to make sure I wasn't in any danger, especially that I hadn't been defeated by a slime. I had to firmly assure her that nothing like that happened. Of course, this expression should be enough to convince her, but clearly my clothes were rather tattered, and she noticed that. By the way, I also apologized to her for trying to reach out to her yesterday morning. But Kaoru seemed happy and thanked me. I'm starting to feel a bit uneasy. It's a strange feeling. It's as if Kaoru doesn't resent me like she did when I first came here, even though I haven't done anything. I really hope she doesn't try to appraise me. It would be bad. She'd find out everything. Luckily, she didn't do that and just went home. She's completely different from how she is in the game. Maybe it's because I didn't become a healer, so the butterfly effect happened. I need to be more careful. So everything is fine now. This is also the only place where I can truly relax in this world. My dad, Narumi Daisul, manages a department store called Narumi, while my beautiful and kind mother, Narumi Sayukiya, works at the guild. And of course, they have an outstanding eldest son, Suta. I've kept something hidden from them, aside from taking over Suta's body. It's the fact that I've been taking Kano to the dungeon. Now we're level 19, and I've decided to tell them my dad probably used his day off to go dungeon exploring with his friends. I wonder how they'll react. But as soon as I entered the house, a family meeting started right away. A sense of guilt naturally rose within me. When I saw my sister's shoe with a cut on the heel placed on the table like evidence against me, Kano had already told them about the jerks in the dungeon. I defended myself, saying that Kano needed to go to the dungeon to prepare for entering the Adventurers Academy. But that wasn't my dad's main concern. He said he'd believe me if I said it was necessary for Kano to go to the dungeon. However, that would mean I'm being mistreated at school, which is why I'm preparing Kano like this. He even asked if it was really necessary for me to attend that Adventurers Academy, and suggested I consider transferring.
It's hard to believe this from a guy who hasn't even changed jobs, but you can be an adventurer without going to that school.
Damn, if that's the case, I won't be able to control the storyline. I could only make an excuse by bringing up my physical condition as a reason. But the truth was clear. I was the one who took Kano there. It's a father's instinct, not to want to see us suffer. He can't stand seeing me come home with injuries from school. Yes, to my dad, everyone in the family is a treasure, so he's very serious about this. The situation feels more tense than I thought. Even my mom spoke up, asking why I was so determined to attend that school. This was truly a difficult question. I couldn't lie, but I couldn't tell the whole truth either. I couldn't just say it's because this character needs to be in the Adventurers Academy, so I decided to give them Butao's reason. That's okay with you, right, Butao?
I want to protect someone.
But Kano got injured, and so did I. Yeah, I was sliced open to the point where my fat was exposed. So it seems my parents had already prepared for this. They declared that they would go to the dungeon together if Kano wanted to continue. Even at a low level, my dad believes he can still do something. No father could sit back, knowing his child had been seriously injured like that. Then they asked for my opinion. Of course, they didn't force me to agree. I couldn't refuse. They were truly too kind. They really respected their children's opinions. Kano was asked for her opinion too. Naturally, she couldn't say no, and the family meeting lasted until late at night. It's my fault for forgetting their feelings, making it seem like I was using them. Now, in the pile of things I bought, there's a magic staff that lets me use appraisal, something more advanced than simple appraisal. It provides more detailed information, so I used it on myself to test it out. There were many new attributes that appeared after I leveled up. But what's this? Increases appetite? So that's why I've been craving food, even though I was trying to lose weight. And there are also other really useful attributes. I started thinking about overriding glutton with another skill. It feels pretty useless. Even after eating, I immediately lose my cool physique. But whatever, I'll put that thought aside for now, because another attribute appeared, can't be appraised. I can only apologize to Butao since I'll need to borrow this body a bit longer. The next day, I went back to school. There's still a lot to do, like gathering information about Akagi Yuma's group.
For sword lessons, please team up with 2 or more people in even groups.
Not this again. Once again, I found myself left out. Clearly, no one wanted to team up with me. This is bad. Should I just team up with Mr. Murai? Damn it. No, he'd figure out that my level 3 is fake. Is someone coming over, Mr. Murai? No, it's a girl. It's Umiya. She seems surprised that I still remember her name. Turns out the girl who usually pairs up with her is absent, so she's pretty cute, right? Even though she's not a main character, she gets mentioned quite a lot. And since she started talking to me, she's probably not a player.
Really? Thank you.
A moment later. Oh, it seems another girl also needs a partner. It's the blonde girl, and Umiya went over to invite her into our group. Finally, my youth has come. And right behind me are those 2 main characters, Yuma and Naoto.
And this is the inner world of Kaoru. At the first Kenjutsu club, Akagi was knocked down. He had failed against the representative of the club. The reason for this battle? It was because Akagi Yuma wanted to ask the school to open a swordsmanship club for Class E. He was utterly defeated, and the other 3 members of his group rushed over. While the girl from the Kenjutsu club kept insulting them, even mentioning the rumor about a student from Class E being defeated by a slime, it was truly humiliating. But that's the truth. Then, someone slammed their hand on Kaoru's desk. These were probably the 2 girls who had been rejected by Akagi from joining the group earlier. They bluntly suggested that Kaoru and Pink should leave Yuma's group right away. They were jealous, that's all. All the girls wanted to be on the same team as the protagonist, and they even dared to insult Kaoru, claiming that she had seduced Naoto and Yuma to get into the team. Kaoru wasn't allowed to speak. They were too aggressive. However, they weren't entirely wrong. Kaoru had been working hard to level up, only being able to support Yuma. At some point, they began to think that Kaoru's cold attitude was one of superiority, looking down on others. At that moment, someone ran over. It was Umiya, who bravely stepped in to defend Kaoru, saying that Kaoru wasn't that kind of person. However, Umiya immediately became the next target for insults. They put the teacher's pet hat on her, calling her the one who was after their PE teacher, Murai. At this point, Kaoru could only stand up. She directly confronted these 2. She declared that Umiya was working hard to help Class E open a club. Kaoru's straightforward and decisive attitude left the 2 girls speechless. She also declared that her position in Yuma's team was simply due to luck. But she didn't forget to emphasize one thing. There were very few who could support Yuma on the front lines. Then Kaoru bowed her head and asked the others to take better care of her. She recounted this story to her team. Even Pink, like Umiya back then, felt that Kaoru didn't need to bow her head like that. Clearly those girls had a great start at this school, so they considered themselves superior to others. As for the girls' issues, Naoto and Yuma didn't have the right to interfere. Naoto could only humorously blame Yuma's bad luck, but Yuma still believed that everything happened because everyone was worried. As long as he becomes stronger, it will reassure everyone. Naoto was almost speechless. This wasn't the kind of spirit he wanted to see, even though he knew it was necessary. After that, they decided to head back, needing to ensure their health for the upcoming battles with the higher classes. On the way back, Naoto discussed with Kaoru that, to prepare for the battle in June, he wanted to train as a group. Because even people with high levels like them couldn't possibly win against higher level classes. And since the strongest members of Class E would be targeted, they needed to train the weaker members more effectively. Then he handed this list to Kaoru to go over. He had told Pink but hadn't informed Yuma, fearing that Yuma would get more stressed if he found out. So Naoto decided he would wait for the right time to tell him. The second person Naoto shared this with was Majima, and this guy was more than happy to help. The target they were focusing on was those with the lowest levels in the class, like Kuga. This dark-skinned girl was only at level 2 and hadn't formed a group with anyone yet. Narumi Souta had only recently formed a group with Umiya and others. This surprised Kaoru a little. Naoto still couldn't believe that he lost to a slime, even though he was level 3. This incident had even become an urban legend. But Naoto thought that the reality might be different. Kaoru could only monitor the reality in the following days during the training to see if Souta was really that weak. There was no reason for him to endure such humiliation. Suddenly, Naoto's gaze stopped.
Are you even training outside the dungeon?
Huh? Do I really look that muscular? Naoto could only reassure her that it was fine, that it would fit well because she was a fighter. It would be great if Yuma was like that too. Naoto noticed that Yuma's performance was declining day by day. This friend of his was carrying too much invisible pressure, taking all the blame on himself, from losing to Korea to losing to the Kenjutsu Club. He was always craving strength in a negative way, and he had been forcing himself since that day. This team wasn't formed for that purpose. Then Naoto asked Kaoru if she could help him stop Yuma.
A few days have passed since I defeated the Wolgamut monster, and I safely received Faker. I even made friends with Umiya and her roommate, Nitsuta. When I get home, I'll go dungeon crawling with my family. I also took the opportunity to gather information at the guild's library. I learned that the current highest level cap is 30, just like in the early game stages. And there's no documentation on things like Faker, motion casting, or DLC. To access higher level materials, I need to rank up to level 8. I really need more information about these guys. No other choice, I'll just have to raise my rank by taking the test. I'm currently at rank 9, and the promotion test to rank 8 is held every Wednesday at 5 p. After that, I headed to the guild to register for the test. Many people had arrived earlier and were waiting. By coincidence, I saw a familiar face. Umiya. She was tying up her hair. Naturally, I hid. I definitely didn't want to be seen. It wouldn't be good if anyone started paying attention to me. Being a small fry is always best. I received an information sheet, which had account details to log in and view the test. The test involves finding an item at a specific location in the dungeon. I just need to grab it and bring it back to the guild within the given time to pass. The task seems straightforward. Now I'm just worried about being spotted by Umiya.
Narumi-sama! Is Narumi Souta-sama here?
What the f? And just like that, she saw me. It turned out that the map they gave me was incorrect and needed some adjustments. Naturally, I didn't make a big deal of it since the person sincerely apologized. Umiya noticed that our test locations were actually pretty close to each other. Oh, it seems Butao is reminding me not to cheat. He's really thorough. Something's bound to happen. I asked Umiya why she was taking the rank-up test. She told me that she was also worried about the final exams. She couldn't just ignore it. After that exam, the level gap between the classes would only grow larger. Everyone was giving it their all. Akagi's group was working hard, so she wouldn't give up either.
I want to do everything I can.
I see. When she asked me, I simply said I felt the same way. After that, we split up. Umiya quickly found her test location. As soon as she entered, she had to witness a goblin being ruthlessly slaughtered. Inside, there was someone who seemed to have been waiting for her.
Oh my, looks like you've come.
He verified Umiya's information. She cautiously asked if they had met before, but he confirmed they hadn't. Putting that aside, Umiya's task was simply to retrieve the scroll behind him. She slowly moved forward. Suddenly, the guy swung his fist and punched her. Damn it! He blatantly announced that the test had changed. Now, Umiya could only complete it by defeating him, but clearly she was no match for him. Umiya lay on the ground, her mouth full of blood. He tore the scroll and declared that the problem was that Umiya was a student from the adventurer school. She suddenly remembered the time he apologized to Souta for giving him the wrong map. If that's the case, then Souta must have been targeted too. Thankfully, I already know the entire storyline. Do you know what happened to Umiya? She was expelled. It was hard to accept, but that was the school's decision. And it was always Mr. Murai who brought the bad news. He even advised her to think of it as a natural disaster, saying it happened because she opposed the upper classes. The whole class was devastated by it. Naoto took the blame upon himself, but she knew it wasn't his fault. In a way, it really could be seen as a natural disaster in that situation. However, her family had high expectations for her. It made her break down in tears, crying in despair in the pouring rain that night. I didn't want to change the storyline, but I couldn't just stand by and watch my first friend at school be bullied like this. Umiya still didn't understand why being a student at the adventurer school was considered wrong. The guy adjusted his glasses. He declared that her first offense was enrolling in this school without any noteworthy points. The second offense, she held a lower rank than him. And the third, despite her lack of strength, she dared to step into the adventurer's world. And the fourth offense, she was looked down upon by mid-level adventurers.
Shit! How absurd!
Umiya immediately drew her weapon and charged forward to retaliate. Unfortunately, he dodged it effortlessly. He was level 13. He even managed to block her blade with his bare hand. There was no way he would lose to a member of Class E. Umiya was slammed into the wall by his attack. Just as expected, adventurer school students are worthless. He had never thought much of them, and now he was leaving. But no, Umiya stood back up. She would keep fighting. He immediately punched her again. This time, though, she didn't get thrown back. She grabbed hold of his leg. This infuriated him. He still had to deal with the fat guy, me, so he cursed and hit her repeatedly. As she was losing consciousness, the only images in Umiya's mind were of her parents and a few good friends. She could only helplessly whisper an apology, and with that, she failed to level up. Because her test had been interfered with by some guy from the guild, but that's how the storyline goes. And that storyline doesn't include me.
Huh?
I'm not just some adult who'll just accept it as is. I punched that guy so hard he got embedded into the wall, and there are plenty of trash like him at my school. They just lack the power to act on it. Anyway, one hit was enough for him. I quickly went over to give Umiya a healing potion. Earlier, I had already taken down that scar-faced guy who bowed an apology in the exam room. They were in on it together. After that, the guild members arrived and discovered everything, and word quickly spread, but that was after I'd already left. At that time, I had given that guy a recovery potion, which is quite expensive. As soon as I received the map change notification, I was cautious. I activated auto-casting aura, took down the scar-faced guy without anyone noticing. Then I staged the scene to cover it up. This was also the first time I had fought someone seriously like this. Now, I just wait for the guild members to arrive. A girl quickly approached. Her speed was terrifying, probably a friend of that guy. She immediately asked if I was the one who did this. Of course, I denied it, saying I was just a newbie who had ranked up to level 8. I was completely confident, letting her use simple appraisal on me, since I had the faker job to hide my real information. However, the expensive potion in my hand was evidence against me. Recently, there had been an increase in crimes targeting low-ranking students from my school, so the guild had been very cautious. And this girl declared that it was her duty to get to the bottom of it. Oh, I see. So, aren't these two guys the criminals then? I started to change my strategy. Maybe showing her I was a little strong wouldn't hurt. So I decided to admit I was the one who had done it, and she could take the credit for it. She began to think it over, then used simple appraisal on me.
I knew it. You have the faker job, huh?
Oh my, how did she know? Faker is clearly not a common job. How did she figure it out? At that moment, the girl reassured me, saying that if I gave her my contact information, she wouldn't reveal anything. Hearing that made me feel relieved. It turned out she just wanted to learn more about this skill, but I needed a guarantee that she wouldn't tell anyone else. Above all, I was worried about my family facing trouble if the truth came out. Seeing that I was worried, she apologized for rushing into things with her agenda. Besides wanting to know if she could learn Faker, she had many other things she wanted to ask me. It seemed this was very important to her. Of course, there was also the possibility that I might kill her to keep her quiet. Nothing is scarier than an opponent you know nothing about. In return, as long as it's not related to her clan, she would do anything to repay me.
Then be my slave.
Just kidding, I agreed to take her contact info instead of giving mine, but she still carefully double-checked. Of course, I couldn't threaten or blackmail anyone in Butao's body. She revealed that she was Kusunoki Karara from Class 2A at the Adventurer Academy. My senpai. After that, we exchanged contact information, but for safety, I still hid the fact that I was from Class E. Then, I took Umiya home, and as a result, Umiya's exam was postponed, and the examiner was taken for questioning, because I had successfully ranked up. So, I was able to move up to a higher-level library and found out that the group we encountered at Golem's Heart belonged to the Sorrel clan. Thanks to 2 members who discovered a new hunting area, they are now actively operating there. I reported this news to my family as well. Since my mom works at the guild, she had heard of this name. Kano immediately asked what kind of people they were. By the way, she had just gotten a new hairstyle that made her look very mature. My mom said she had never heard anything good about them. The leader is very ambitious and their rivalry never stops. I hadn't heard anything about this group from my classmates either. Not only that, I had never heard that name in the game. As my work kept piling up, I didn't have time to get close to anyone. What I didn't expect was that my dad asked about me and Kaoru, while my mom and Kano had 2 completely different reactions. I almost forgot about that task. This immediately made someone sneeze.
Oh, I can be sick now.
Oni, that person is here!
Another morning on the way to school, and still, there's this awkward feeling. Hey, I know I'm the one who started it, but we both have our own schedules. So how about we stop going to school together starting tomorrow? Well, that's what I wanted to say, but doing that would mean giving up something important. Information about the main character. I have tons of questions, like how he got the static sword. I'm pretty sure a player must have interfered with this, and then there's the matter of the ranking test. I just have to remind myself to be more careful. My anxiety must be so obvious that even Kaoru can sense it. Arriving at school, here's Kuga during weapon training. Nitsuta asked her to team up, but Kuga seemed more interested in Yuma. Turns out Nitsuta isn't strong enough for her to spar with. Ouch. That was so blunt that I had to check in on Nitsuta to see if he was okay. Well, thanks to that, I got a sparring partner. I also asked about how Umiya was doing, and apparently, even though she's healed, she's still sleeping all the time. Nitsuta also thanked me for looking after and bringing her roommate back to the dorm. I didn't expect Nitsuta to then ask about the examiner from my ranking test. Clearly, she knows he was one of the criminals. I could only cover it up by saying that thanks to that strong adventurer passing by, I didn't run into any trouble.
Tell me about it. Narumi-kun, you're weaker than a goblin after all.
What a cheeky girl. But that tone reminded me of something. Back when I played this game and was at my peak, going around hunting other players, players like me were called player killers or PKs. By killing others, I'd collect rare items from the players I defeated, and then people who specialized in hunting PKs started to appear. They were called PKKs, player killers killers. Each of those encounters was a heated battle. Just thinking back makes my whole body heat up. And each PK had their own nickname. Nitsuta invited me to go practice swordplay somewhere else, casually mentioning that she's quite confident in her sword skills. Well, I need to figure out a way not to make her lose confidence, especially since I'm already level 19. But what shocked me was, shit, her sword stance was eerily similar to that person. Even the way she swung her sword as she charged.
Say Narumi Souta-kun, or perhaps Gayaku-kun, right?
Really? That time, the girl who came hunting me was defeated by me. People call me the Rouge Disaster or just Sayaku for short.
That reaction, I knew it, I was right.
I've been expecting this. Other players must have come here as well. And out of all the people, you were one of them, huh? But I still want to ask how she recognized me. She said it was because of the rank promotion test last Wednesday. Of course, it was full of suspicious points, and I instantly became the top suspect. Especially my reaction when I saw her sword stance. It's the pendulum sword style that she often uses. She really is a smart girl. But look at this. Her character here is so beautiful. I asked if she chose a custom character. She confirmed it and said she tried to make it look as close to herself in real life as possible.
Cosplay?
I don't feel any pain at all. So she's only level 5. No wonder there's barely any strength. Naturally, she said she has her own special circumstances.
Don't suddenly attack like that.
But if what she says is true, if we don't do something, the teacher will come, and whatever we need to discuss should be talked about somewhere else. But I didn't know at the time that Kaoru was watching me and Nidorisa, perhaps wanting to see my level of sword skills. She was so focused that she got hit by a healer. That evening, I arranged to meet Nida at the guild square. Naturally, my mom was curious and asked about it.
Souta didn't expect that someone had accidentally seen them. That person was Kaoru.
Souta?
But she looked at him with rather sad eyes. What could a young man do at this hour? They could only silently walk in opposite directions.
After that, I met Nida. She was surprised by my little brother. An appraisal wand. I brought it because I don't trust this girl, especially with that laugh of hers. And here's her information. Estrus, huh? So she has a starter skill similar to my glutton. Then I bluntly stated that I have no desire to cooperate with her. I know it was a bit harsh, but it was necessary. First, her level is too low to be of any use to me in battle. Second, I don't trust her. Third, someone interfered in the fight between Yuma and Korea. I don't know if that person was Nida or not, so she understood, yet she still insisted on teaming up with me. For one simple reason. She wants Satsuki Umiya to be happy. Strange. If it were me, I'd just take Umiya to farm monsters at some good hunting spots, and that'd be that. But once again, Nita brought up her own special circumstances as an excuse, and promised to tell me about them if I teamed up with her. Knowing her circumstances, what would that do for me? So I decided to ask further,
Do you have any other merit for me?
After thinking for a moment, Nita decided to offer more information about this world as an additional reward. Specifically, about the player who interfered in Karia and Yuma's fight. All right. If that's the case and this girl isn't involved, then I have no reason to hesitate. So I agreed with her. Oh, she seemed surprised. Is teaming up with a chubby guy like me really that interesting? Turns out, she was ready to give up her purity for a legendary assassin like me after all. I had a notorious reputation for being bloodthirsty and ruthless back then. Of course, I assured her that wasn't going to happen, as the Butao in me didn't want it. Plus, for a hated character like him, he just happens to be evil. That sort of thing should stay within the game's fiction. So I made a temporary contract with Nida. I would help Umiya reach level 5, and in that time, she'd have to tell me about the other players. You might not know, but as a top player, my word carries a lot of weight in this game. And she understands that well.
When I was struggling with my first skill, she still supported me, my best friend. Sorry for the wait.
Today, we entered the dungeon together. Nida wanted to remind me of something, that the common knowledge in this game is still based on the original version. I confirmed that things like Faker were added later. Then I told her about Kusunoki. Only now did I realize that he's also a character in the storyline. Damn, sorry for acting like a know-it-all. The truth is, I haven't experienced the storylines of the female characters.
Idiot.
Nida said she's a member of a big clan called Red Kunoichi. That's a powerful character. Now Nida, like me, is suspicious about why Red Kunoichi knows about Faker. I think that while regular people may not know about it, they could still learn it if given the chance. We arrived at a deserted DLC area. Then Nita wanted to show me something. I saw her just using a normal aura, but in a meditative pose, she slowly disappeared. Isn't this invisibility? She explained that this skill wasn't something she brought from playing the game, nor something she learned in this world, but rather, she managed to control the mana released from her body, and then adjusted and transformed the magic particles to match the surrounding space. I think it's similar to adjusting energy output up to 100,000 volts and releasing electricity outward. Thanks to that, other skills became possible too. One of those skills is the meditation health recovery skill, a troublesome skill. Now, by meditating to recover, we can eliminate the drawbacks of the skill. This meditation skill caused Nita quite a bit of hardship, even though she was someone who often meditated in her previous world. And while meditating in this world, she accidentally discovered it. It's strange because I've researched so much about skills in the library, but I'd never heard of anything like this. Nita thinks it's similar to DLC, of course, which makes it valuable information to me, and I have to thank her. And there's one more thing. To prevent Satsuki from leaking information, she prepared this. It's a magic contract! I thought she was being overly cautious, but since it's for Satsuki's benefit, Nita didn't hesitate at all. The next day, when we reached the 5th floor of the dungeon, Satsuki was a bit surprised to see the contract. I could only explain that if information about these hunting spots were to leak, our lives would be in danger. And the penalty for revealing it is
your life.
Look at her. She's really tense.
Will it really make me strong? If it will, then I will sign it.
All right. And so, she accepted and signed the contract. That's the trap bridge, an SSS-level hunting spot. I took down a few monsters that were too fast, then returned to my usual strategy, luring them onto the bridge. Satsuki was genuinely gaping, seeing how strong I was. I lured the monsters across the bridge, and then the other two split up and took action. A horde of monsters was defeated, and Satsuki instantly leveled up to 5. Surprise! She's testing her new skills. The truth is, if she leaks the information, the contract will just burn up. Nita knows that them leveling up doesn't mean anything to me. She's not wrong, but that was my old mindset.
Now I'd be happy if my allies grew stronger.
By the way, maybe even Nita doesn't know about the broken bridge?
Besides, I also think that Umiya Satsuki deserves to be happy.
This made Nita look at me suspiciously, but I immediately gave her a playful slap on the shoulder, telling her that if she understood, she should hurry up and tell Satsuki the truth about the contract.
Thanks.
I remembered that Butao also made a magic contract with Kaoru, but it was probably just a childish thing, with a few missing words here and there.
Yet for someone, it was a big deal and caused her genuine unhappiness.
Back to Katsuki's work. She's putting in effort so Class E can open a martial arts club. There are many benefits to it, especially receiving generous funding from the school. But despite her hard work, she was still rejected. It was probably the student council's decision. Katsuki didn't give up and wanted to go straight to the student council to ask. And of course, having one more chubby guy on the team would boost their confidence. I didn't want to confront them at all, but if it's just going along to hear the reason, then fine. So we boldly headed to the student council's office. On the way, we ran into Naoto. Here's the teacher's office. They're always busy. A female teacher was asking Mr. Murai why he was advising Class E's club. His superiors questioned him a lot about this, but for him, being pestered by Umiya was far worse. So that's why she was clinging to Murai for a while. By now, our group had arrived at the student council room. Satsuki wouldn't accept it without hearing a valid reason. We stepped inside. The icy student council president asked Satsuki to state her issue. After hearing her request, he directly suggested we go home. Of course, she yelled, determined to get an answer. But in response, all we got were insults. He called us pieces of trash. Immediately, Nita and I had to rush to protect Katsuki, because the guy unleashed an overwhelming aura. Damn it, he's too strong. And just like that, he told us not to come back. In the end, we still didn't know what the reason was. It was such a weird conversation. Nita thought we should start over and propose again. I had already lost hope. He wouldn't listen to anything we said. Meanwhile, Katsuki apologized for dragging us into this. But in truth, it was for the benefit of Class E. I was totally fine with it. Besides, that's just how nobles treat commoners. At the same time, Naoto appeared before a large mansion. He followed a bodyguard through a vast bamboo garden. This wasn't just a mansion, it was even a large castle. He immediately kneeled before a girl, who was Otoha from the Ishiki noble family, the top student in Class 2A, and the reason he was here was to ask for one thing. He wanted Otoha to speak to the student council on behalf of Class 1E. Naoto knew very well that a commoner could do nothing, even though his family was a warrior clan. But Otoha was different. She was an old noble from a powerful family. They could even apply pressure legally, but the thing was, Otoha had to explain things to Naoto for him to understand. About Naoto, I know him quite well. He comes from a warrior family that has served the Ishiki Viscount family for generations. Naoto and Otoha share a similarity. They were both born with weak constitutions, which makes it easier for them to empathize with each other. On the day Otoha enrolled in the Adventurer Academy, he believed she would soon return home, or at least in his heart, he hoped she would. But no, within just 1 year, Otoha-sama had already shone brightly. At 13, she appeared in Magic Magazine, becoming a figure that Naoto deeply admired. That's why he was so determined to get into the Adventurer Academy. And as for why this academy was created, Naoto thought it was to train true adventurers, but the truth runs deeper. In this country, there are 2 types of nobility. First are the old nobles, who have existed since the Meiji era, and then there are the new nobles, those who weren't born into nobility, but earned titles through significant achievements. Since the rise of the new nobility, the old nobles' interests have been seriously affected, with many companies leaving them for the new nobles. But where do these new nobles often come from? They are often adventurers. Therefore, the old nobles devised a strategy. First, hire strong adventurers to help them climb the ranks and keep these adventurers firmly in their place. Second, prevent them from becoming part of the new nobility. In this way, the threat of the new nobility will be eliminated before it even begins. Naoto couldn't hold back his anger. This means the country will rot from within. But that's exactly what old nobles like the Ishiki family are doing. Incidentally, Otoha reminded Naoto about the upcoming midterm exams between classes, where these underlying rules will reveal themselves a bit more. Naoto, however, was entirely unaware, his face clearly showing his concern. In short, no one can help with the matter of Class E that Naoto is concerned about. Clearly, the Academy doesn't care about fairness. Still, Otoha has a solution. At this point, her 2 bodyguards stepped forward and revealed something under their coats. If Naoto were to have this mark tattooed onto his body, swearing loyalty to her family, then she would help. So that's it, a magic contract engraved directly onto his body. Once he did this, Otoha would ensure that no one targeted Naoto. This type of binding has long been banned. Naoto trembled as Otoha assured him she could do it. He could get into not only Class D but also the top-ranked club. Clearly this was a steep price to pay. So what was his answer? He found the whole thing utterly ridiculous. After all, he still had important teammates who needed his support.
Come on, don't underestimate us.
Meanwhile, I decided to help cheer up Katsuki by letting her spar with an orc. But suddenly, I noticed someone at the trap bridge and immediately gripped my sword hilt, ready. Oh, it was Kano. Clearly she'd gone off on her own little adventure without telling anyone.
Oni-san!
Look at how startled she is. I introduced her to my 2 friends. I explained that she wanted to join the adventurer school, so she was preparing ahead. Nita looked a bit skeptical.
I see. It's countermeasure if they'd start a fight.
Naturally, I didn't hold back from scolding her right there. She clearly snuck out alone. Way too dangerous. Don't look at me like that.
Kano-chan, you're so cute.
To me, this was the worst part of the story. There's still someone here who hasn't been patted yet. Then Nita found an excuse to pull me aside for a private chat. Her reason, of course, was so flimsy it made me look like some kind of weirdo.
And then they left, leaving Katsuki to turn to Suta's little sister, asking her whether they were maybe too close and moving on to the next stage in their relationship. Kano's eyes sparkled like a kitten's, thinking Nita had put Kaoru in his place. That's awesome.
I think so too.
Now was the time for Nita to tell me about the player who interfered in Korea. After that, Nita will arrange for me to meet him in person.
One Saturday morning, Kaoru seemed a bit hesitant to invite Suta to study on a day off like this. Kano happened to catch sight of her coming.
What is it?
Kaoru could only stammer awkwardly, unable to say anything.
I'll call him.
And I attended the intensive class training session, still feeling regret over a precious Saturday morning. Nita is always so full of energy, isn't she? After picking up a few things from Kaoru, she came over to tell me about it. Oh, she's looking at me. Damn, I almost got caught staring at her too.
Yo, Risa!
And now, that player has arrived. Thinking about how this guy disrupted the storyline makes me a bit tense. And here he is, the guy with the hero-like hairstyle who turned me down last time. He arrived, immediately claiming there was nothing to learn from this practice session. I could only play dumb, and his name is Tsukijima Takuya. He's also a third-generation player. He's even a classmate of Nita's. Luckily, he doesn't know about autopick, so I won't be suspected.
Hello.
Nita smoothly claimed that he's using me to go dungeon crawling. That caught the guy off guard. Of course, he also knows that Butao's level in the game isn't too bad. Nita assured him that in reality, Butao is a good person. At this point, Tsukijima asked if Nita had told Akagi about the sword. Nita was cautious, realizing it wasn't appropriate to talk about that here, but he didn't care since he believed Butao wouldn't understand anything. Nita immediately stated that the most suspicious person in this matter is him.
Oh. About you telling Karya-kun the countermeasure to that sword. If Akagi-kun does his best, then I think it'll benefit us.
Then Tsukijima confessed that he had tried to interfere a bit, because the main character was building a harem for himself. He likes the character Kaoru. Now, Nita needs to know if he'll agree to help Akagi from now on. Tsukijima seemed uninterested. What he was after was the power to survive. He even wanted the power to reshape the world and do whatever he pleased. Something made him very confident in his own strength. However, he wouldn't say anything unless Nita teamed up with him and agreed to a magical contract. Then he stood up and left, reminding me to act like I hadn't heard anything. Now I understand why Nita didn't want to team up with him. Clearly, Nita prefers kind and honest people. Not only does Nita dislike him, but he also seems repulsed, viewing him as an antagonist. As for me, I judge others by how they treat everyone in this world. However, the reality is, if things continue like this, he'll sooner or later become our enemy. A while later, Yuma began calling everyone to get ready for practice matches. Everyone paired up and practiced together, while Majima and Yuma's group provided guidance.
We are sorry for talking down to all of you. Everyone, let's do our best for the class competition.
All right. Huh? I was quite surprised to see that even this character showed up. Kuga Kotone, the girl with the tan skin. Look, she's still half asleep. I really had to hold back my laughter. But they've set me up to spar with her, and the worst part is she seems pretty angry.
A few people started getting quite excited about the training. Sure enough, thanks to Yuma, everyone is in a good mood. But there are also some who talk behind her back and gossip about her and the others. These whispers reached her ears, and it made Kaoru feel disgusted. But as one of the class leaders, she could only slap herself in the face and push away the negative thoughts. Now was not the time for meaningless emotions. She quickly got back to work, guiding the others in the class. On the other side, she saw that Kuga and Suta hadn't started yet. Moreover, these two are the lowest level in the class. Kaoru needed to go encourage them a bit, telling Kuga not to hold back and just fight the way she wanted. However, at this moment, Kuga completely ignored what Kaoru said, focusing solely on the overweight Suta in front of her. Then she suddenly asked Kaoru why she had to participate. Kuga even questioned Kaoru's level, and when she found out Kaoru was level 6, she turned away, wanting to leave, thinking she only needed to reach level 6 next time. Of course, Kaoru stopped her. So Kuga decided to defeat Suta and then go home to make things right. Kaoru believed that Kuga just wanted to vent her anger on someone, but Suta still had a higher level. He was level 3. Even though Kaoru was a little worried for Suta, the guy who got beaten by a slime, she thought he'd be fine. Oh my! In the blink of an eye, Kuga closed the distance and threw a punch at Suta's face. She's so fast! What was unexpected for Kuga was that this chubby boy could actually see her movements. Kaoru couldn't believe this either, while Suta kept denying it, even flattering Kuga non-stop. But the most shocked was Kaoru. She sweated when she found out Kuga was even faster than Yuma and could even be almost as fast as Kariya from Class D. That would be too dangerous for Suta. She hurriedly rushed over to stop Kuga, but Kuga lifted her off the ground with one hand, declaring that Kaoru should stay out of the way. She wanted to continue fighting Suta. At this point, Suta could only scream, saying he was really too weak to fight her. Unbelievable. Kuga was only level 2. And from what Kaoru knew, there were no state-altering skills like that in existence. Since then, Kuga became an unknown factor in the class, someone no one could figure out. She emitted an invisible pressure that made others tremble. Kaoru remembered the time when Naoto asked her to stop Yuma. Kaoru had bluntly refused because she truly admired and was captivated by him. Moreover, it was only natural for each person to want to become stronger, but she wouldn't stop Naoto. On the contrary, Naoto was more suited for that role. He was always close to Yuma and on equal terms with him at this school. And aside from that, Kaoru promised she would cooperate if it was for the benefit of the class.
God, you're so annoying.
So Naoto had no choice but to ask Kaoru for help during the training. He and Pink had no expertise, while Yuma had to perform as a talent for everyone to see. That's how it was. But now, Kaoru couldn't go up against a level 2, and people around her started to take notice. No matter what, Kaoru had to fulfill her responsibility. She had already promised Naoto. Kaoru decided to stand up. She couldn't back down here. She knew that if she did, she would regret it. Besides, Kuga wasn't her enemy.
Kuga-san, I understand that you're unwilling to help the class. I can kind of understand that. If you're someone as strong as you, you'd probably think that, but still.
So stubborn.
Kuga unleashed her aura, pushing everyone back. But Kaoru still refused to give up, still begging her to contribute to the class.
I don't know if we can give you what you want. This is the only thing I can do. Please.
In the face of this sincerity and persistence, Kuga had no choice but to agree. Of course, she would update her level status, even though it was a bit of a hassle, but right now, she needed to do something more important. Unfortunately, the fat guy had already run off. Yuma rushed over to check on Kaoru, while Kuga just wanted to find the fat guy and have a fight. But Kaoru didn't know. Kuga Kotone was a spy from America, a superhuman with a level above 20.
After some time, our class had a meeting. Majima, a member of the class committee, announced that this meeting was about the interclass competition with 7 days in the dungeon, and everyone was required to participate. This competition has 5 main events. First, reaching the designated location. Second, defeating the specified monster. Third, reaching the deepest possible level in the dungeon. Fourth, the total number of magic stones collected. And finally, completing the assigned task. Among these, the event to reach the deepest floor was particularly challenging for them, almost skippable, because other classes would also deploy their strongest members for fierce competition. Class E had virtually no chance of winning. To get the reward, we had to reach at least half the number of floors as the leading team. Last year, the winning team reached the 16th floor. But at this point, someone suggested using the useless ones in class, and Naoto was surprised. It seemed like a stroke of genius. As long as these useless members followed other classes, we could secure the prize. Of course, they had their sights set on me and Kuga. But the brutal truth was that Kuga had shed his weak facade and reached level 6, meaning I was the only useless one left, and Majima immediately placed his confidence in me as if it were an order. Kaoru stood up in a hurry to object, saying it was a dangerous job and they could simply leave me out of it. This couldn't help but make the nosy ones feel strange, but
I'll do it!
Kaoru was startled. Majima seized the opportunity, rushing over to pat my shoulder, sealing the deal. What a guy, truly dedicated to the class. But Naoto didn't agree. Even though he knew it was beneficial for Class E, it was genuinely too dangerous, like telling me to go die alone. This was awful. I thought if I volunteered, it would be fine. Look, Satsuki is about to lose it because I'm being treated like this. At this point, Kuga stood up and offered to go with me. Everyone was stunned. Majima believed that since Kuga was now a strong fighter, it would be more beneficial for her to earn points in the other events. But Kuga reminded everyone that she didn't want to participate from the start. So, as long as she could bring home the prize, that was all that mattered. No one could argue with that. I refused. Just kidding. After that, the meeting went smoothly.
Kuga went over to Kaoru and asked if this counted as helping the class. Of course it did, and Kaoru didn't forget to thank her.
No problem. I'm also interested in Narumi Souta, so this is perfect.
Then Kuga walked off, leaving Kaoru feeling doubtful.
My group also met up, and I had to thank Satsuki for holding herself back. According to Majima, even they and Yuma would have a hard time reaching the 8th floor. Satsuki reassured me, saying that with Kuga along, I wouldn't be in danger even if we went deeper. Surely Kuga-san. Anyway, Satsuki also felt that this situation wasn't ideal, because everyone was expecting too much from me.
Meanwhile, Yuma's group was also meeting behind the school. Once again, Yuma felt he wasn't strong enough to reassure everyone, with only Kaoru consistently supporting him. But this time, Naoto had heard enough. Strength wasn't the issue here, as failure would just keep happening in a vicious cycle. He knew that a strong leader figure could boost morale, but Naoto had to make a decision. Yuma understood what his friend was getting at and directly asked him to say it outright. So, Naoto bluntly called out Yuma's blind pessimism, saying his attitude was getting worse and that his performance was steadily declining. Of course, Yuma wasn't about to accept that easily. There was only one way. They would have to settle this with a fight.
Nita also noticed something strange in the atmosphere in class today. And, if she remembered correctly, the heroine's storyline was progressing at this point. I honestly had no idea about the heroine's storyline. At this part, Naoto and Yuma would have an intense showdown.
Naoto officially challenged Yuma to a duel. If Yuma couldn't defeat a mage like Naoto, it would prove Naoto's point. Yuma didn't say much and immediately agreed. Pink couldn't do anything in this situation but feel helpless, and as for Kaoru, she had promised not to interfere. Unexpectedly, though, Takeda, who was always spying on Kaoru, overheard them. She quickly ran off, but Naoto, who had enhanced hearing, knew right away that it was Takeda. Kaoru immediately grew worried and rushed after her, because if she went around spreading the news, it would be a huge hassle.
Meanwhile, we were here trying to assess how bad the situation could get. Nita thought it might turn out like Butao being defeated by a slime, which made me feel a chill, just the thought of such a disaster, even if a toxic environment needed a sacrifice. Now, Nita could only reassure me that she'd use her influence to keep the story from going off track.
Meanwhile, Takeda was sprinting at full speed, and just as Kaoru feared, Takeda dashed into Class E, excitedly announcing that Yuma and Naoto were going to fight. Her words left everyone stunned, and they wanted to know more details. The two of them were the leaders of the entire class. If they fought, it would definitely cause a panic. At that moment, Kaoru also entered, stumbling upon an awkward scene. Even Takeda didn't know what else to say. A few people started voicing their unease. Kaoru knew the situation was worsening and tried to stammer out an appeal for understanding, but she herself was losing composure, her vision darkening. Suddenly, the table next to Takeda was knocked over. Was it Kaoru's aura? At that moment, Takeda realized she had pushed someone beyond their limit. She immediately knelt down, saying that Kaoru, Naoto, and Yuma were all right. Now, she just wanted everything to stop and begged Kaoru to stop. Trembling with fear, Takeda tearfully said she'd had enough of everyone looking down on her. In truth, she was just like Kaoru and the others, happy at first, but then facing a long period of hardship. Majima declared that everyone went through it. Did Takeda think she was the only one suffering? Kaoru could only remind him not to be like that. At that moment, someone else spoke up. He said he understood how Takeda and Yuma's group felt. They wanted to lead everyone. But for them, all the effort they invested in studying at this school had been invalidated. Just then, Yuma's group also entered the room and overheard this. The only thing left was empty frustration. In other words, they had lost their original motivation, and if this continued, they wouldn't be able to follow Yuma's group anymore. So that was it. Now Kaoru and her group understood. It wasn't anyone's fault, not Yuma's and not theirs. Kaoru had always known she was a pitiful person, but she hadn't considered the journey of the girl in front of her. She knelt down in front of Takeda, admitting that she herself was someone who struggled, dealing with her own shortcomings. Takeda couldn't believe it. Meanwhile, Kaoru started listing her own weaknesses, how she worried about her overly sensitive heart, her too large chest, her broad frame, even her excessive height. So she disliked herself too. And that everyone thought their own issues were overwhelming. But Kaoru wouldn't end by hating herself. Instead, she would strive to become someone who was right.
I'd like you to join me. I want you to struggle together with me.
Well, it seemed that way, but this was actually a breakthrough for Kaoru's inner growth. She had truly opened up to accept the side characters around her. At that moment, Takeda felt it was unfair and regretted everything she had done to Kaoru and her group. The situation had been resolved. Now, all that was left was the battle between these two guys. Kaoru announced the fight to the whole class. Everyone was free to follow whichever group they chose, and anyone who wanted to watch the fight could come and see. Yuma and Naoto headed to the training room to face off. Naoto took the opportunity to apologize to Kaoru for putting her in a difficult position. Kaoru didn't mind at all. In fact, she was a bit glad to have untangled some of the mess, but the root of the problem was still there. This was only a temporary solution. Everything now depended on the two of them and this fight. Naoto understood and asked Yuma if he still held his previous opinion. Of course he did. With both of them set on their stance, they could only fight to determine who was wrong. And so, the battle between Class E's pillars began.
Pink trembled, bringing her hands together in prayer. Kaoru told her that she didn't have to watch this match, but she insisted. Yuma was someone she admired. He had stood up to protect her that one time, and these two were also her teammates, so she absolutely had to watch. Kaoru asked if they were both ready, and with that, under Kaoru's command, the battle officially began. A warrior class like Yuma had no choice but to charge in first, moving at lightning speed, but Naoto had already seen through his approach. Would the strike hit its mark? No, Yuma had noticed in time. Unfortunately, just as he realized it, Naoto countered with a lightning-fast move. One hand swung his staff while the other pushed Yuma back. Then he kicked Yuma in the back, pointing his staff straight at him, and cast the spell Fire Arrow. Surprised? Yuma took the blast head-on, the fireball hitting him square in the face. Unbelievable. A warrior like him losing a close-quarters fight with Naoto. Yuma knew he'd lost focus. Damn it. Even Naoto hadn't expected that his last attack would deal so little damage. Now Yuma would focus even more. Nita approached Majima, striking up a conversation in a rather familiar way. She asked Majima if he could mimic that move of his. Majima immediately realized it was another tricky question and could only scold her for being so devious. The answer was that he couldn't. In terms of strength, Majima was superior, but when it came to flexibility and reflexes, he simply couldn't mimic it. However, there was someone who managed to pull it off. Even though Naoto was a backline fighter with no real advantage against a close combat opponent, in this match, Naoto enhanced his hearing to keep up with Yuma's movements, using mainly his own physical techniques to counter them. Majima quickly realized that Yuma was weakening, but there was something Nita still didn't understand, that people in this world seemed more sensitive than the players. The honest guy didn't feel the need to explain that to Nita. At that moment, Yuma slashed horizontally at Naoto, who blocked it with his staff. Then he quickly countered with an upward swing of his staff, and while Yuma was busy dodging, Naoto threw in a kick. He gained enough distance to cast another fire arrow. Yuma was hit, but as before, it didn't do much damage. Naoto reminded Yuma that he didn't want to hurt anyone, since they had once talked about becoming ideal adventurers. But now, Yuma's ideal was nothing more than crap, making Naoto roar,
"I can't follow you! Not with that shitty ideal!"
On that very first day, Naoto wanted to stand up and act for Pink, but he feared he would lose to the big guy. Being too clever, he overthought it, even considering how he'd need to defeat the strongest, and would then become a target himself. But at that moment, someone stepped forward. Naoto was deeply impressed then. Knowing full well what the situation was, Yuma still stood up, not recklessly, but with courage. Naoto had hoped that Yuma could pursue his ideals further, for longer, eternally, without losing strength.
"Are you going to yield? What do you want to do?"
Naoto had known his friend was always hiding something. Now Yuma moved swiftly to the left, then leaped over Naoto's head, going for a deadly strike. But Naoto anticipated this and attacked upward toward his own head, not expecting Yuma to counter his blast and come down with a double stinger. It was clear Yuma was taking this more seriously. You had to give credit to the mage. He was keeping up with Yuma's movements. Now Naoto began thinking of a way to win. He planned to exploit the gaps between Yuma's attacks and strike back. The problem was, if Yuma didn't attack in the next 3 seconds, it meant he had already figured out Naoto's strategy. Here it comes, Yuma launched his attack. This fight couldn't drag on, as Naoto's stamina was no match for Yuma's. Naoto had to be absolutely precise. As expected, Yuma leapt up, aiming for another double stinger. The two of them immediately charged at each other. The whole class held their breath, knowing the decisive moment had arrived. And with that, Yuma was defeated. A convincing victory. After declaring the winner, Kaoru and Pink quickly rushed over, tending to both of them right away. Naoto immediately questioned if Yuma truly wanted power just to make everyone feel at ease. Yuma replied that he just wanted to be a strong leader, but
I am weak.
It turned out that ever since losing to Korea from Class D, Yuma had sunk into despair, using everyone as an excuse and blindly craving power without considering how others felt about him. Naoto apologized, saying that if he hadn't brought it up, Yuma wouldn't have known. They had thought that previous loss was just part of his motivation, but regardless, Naoto had won. He told Yuma to keep nurturing that feeling.
And let's make it happen someday. Everyone.
The class fell silent. Naoto requested to keep the sensitive reason behind this fight a secret, and more importantly, he needed to lift the spirits of the entire class. Even though everyone was feeling hopeless due to the school's corrupt system, they were all young and lacked connections to rely on. But if they didn't fight, their only option would be to drop out. Drop out because of this school system? That would be terrible. He wanted to see everyone graduate with smiles on their faces, so Naoto called on them to help make that ideal a reality. Nita immediately chimed in, saying it wasn't too late for everyone to start working hard for the upcoming inter-class competition. That was true, and Yuma began to speak up as well.
Please, I'm begging.
It's time for a background character like me to step in.
Sorry. We're frustrated too. We just weren't being honest, that's all.
She immediately glanced over, looking more surprised by me each day. But this was necessary, because the butterfly effect was beginning. Another classmate also apologized. See? Even a top-tier misfit can have an impact. Naoto could only compliment them for being so cool. Everyone agreed to give it their all in this exam. I even received an apology from another background character. Meanwhile, Satsuki took a deep breath, then encouraged everyone with a voice full of passion, and suddenly the whole room erupted, everyone shouting in unison to fight on. Takeda looked at Kaoru's group, moved by their determination. Suddenly, Pink collapsed to the ground. It turned out she was exhausted from all the worrying, but now she too would give her all for the class competition. The class ended, and Nita informed me about the details of the exam. It didn't seem much different from the game, but we wouldn't be able to rest until it was over. I understood, and could only thank her for all the help she'd given me, though Nita looked at me, as if testing my resolve, and told me that I should also do my best. Well, she was quite serious about it.
At Golem's heart, Class D was farming monsters here. Naturally, they were strong enough to take down this tree golem, especially since Karia was in their party. Just then, two men approached. It was the guy from Sorel's group, the older brother of the big guy from Class D. When Karia saw the high-ranking figure, he bowed respectfully, thanking him for letting them farm here. Of course, the older brother of the big guy was the one who had discovered this hunting ground, and he was now quite busy with guild work. After finding this spot, his branch of Sorel had been promoted. He was the leader of Sorel, now serving as the head of a higher-level branch called the Golden Orchid. This was good news because it meant that Golden Orchid, a very powerful guild branch, would be able to support Class D in the exam. Hearing this, Karia immediately bowed and thanked him, knowing that with an outside guild backing them, their class's chances of winning would significantly increase. Meanwhile, Kaoru's group was busy farming monsters. Now, they could comfortably handle the wargs. They were all at level 7, but it was already 8 p.m. Surprisingly, Yuma was the one who suggested the group head back home, which was out of character for him. Clearly, he had changed. Everyone in the class was working hard each day.
Kano was learning martial arts from Furu-chan, and I even did sit-ups. In the morning, Kaoru still came by to invite me to school. No, today is the day when the interclass competition begins. The day before the competition, at Obaba's shop, I sparred with my younger sister. Sure enough, Kano had gotten much stronger, closing in on me with speed and landing blows. But I wasn't going down that easily. Kano quickly followed up, pivoting her leg, then leaping high. This was her finishing move. She really was strong. Phew. And since I won fairly easily, I was planning to find a replacement to help support Class E in the competition, but it seems she didn't want that. She even sought support from Nita and Satsuki. Plus, my concern was that Kaoru knew Kano, so if she went to help them, it might expose me. Even Satsuki agreed with me. Furthermore, Kano was still underage for dungeon missions. Either way, I had prepared a disguise for Kano to help her hide her identity, but now it was unnecessary. I suspected that other players might also step in during the competition. I suddenly remembered Tsukishima, so I asked more about him. He was one of the few who survived the beta test alongside Nita. He believed that legendary players like me, who never quite found an interesting role, were driven by a desire to reach a place even greater than paradise. He was also very eager to team up with Nita, though she always tried to ignore him. In the end, Nita just wanted to stick to the storyline to achieve the best possible ending, and now she could only rely on me, hoping I would reach the deepest levels. Fine, that's also why I volunteered to participate in this event. I reassured Satsuki that my level was pretty high and that I'd be safe. But the real reason was that I wanted to see the top players of the upper classes with my own eyes. This was a great chance to gather information, something Class E students would typically struggle to do. Especially her, Sarah Kikyu, my idol, and the top student in the first year. Depending on the path players take, she'll decide whether you're an ally or a rival. Just thinking about it made me excited, so much so that I had to wipe my drool.
What Suda didn't expect was that Kano, with a determined look, had secretly asked Furu-chan to hold on to the disguise set.
After giving his instructions, Teacher Murai left. Everyone then rushed over to ask Satsuki about who would be helping Class E in the competition. They all seemed curious. Won't they just find out when the time comes? Yuma also handed over responsibilities to Majima. No one came to ask me anything, so I stood up and got ready to head to the plaza.
Suda.
Oh, Koru called me over. She reminded me to back off if things got dangerous and said that with my level, reaching the 6th floor would be enough. Maybe she should say that to someone else, but not to Butao, right? It seems like she's genuinely worried about me. She even lightly punched my chest and wished me luck. I don't get it. Why is everything like this? Whatever, I can't control anyone in this world anyway. At the plaza, the instructor began calling for the participants in the dungeon challenge to step forward. So I stepped up, but I noticed someone else stepping up at the same time. Kikyu. My class divided the tasks as follows. Yuma is leading a group for the Reach the Designated Point task. Majima is leading a group for Defeat the Designated Monster. Nita and Naoto with their group are handling Clear the Designated Quest, and Kaoru with Tsukishima and their group are gathering magic stones. As for me, I'm grouped with Kuga.
Narumi Souta.
I almost forgot about that. Judging by that look, maybe she hasn't forgotten about last time. Of course, a spy would want to assess my strength. Just then, someone called me. It was Tenma. But what's with that expression? It turns out she believes I've lost weight. She wants to know my secret. Well, I can't exactly say it's because I reached level 20. While I was still feeling awkward, Tenma grabbed my hand. She wanted to talk in private, and she also decided that I'd be joining her in the dungeon exploration. Looks like Kuga was shocked in some negative way. And here, I once again ran into my idol, Kikyu, the top first-year student. Oh wow, she looked my way, so embarrassing. But she thought I was Tenma's friend, so she came over to say hello. Wait, I am Tenma's friend, aren't I? Sarah Kikyu. She's so beautiful, with silver hair and even silver eyebrows. So charming. Huh? I forgot that she has the clairvoyance eye, allowing her to see the future of whoever she observes. I'm honored that she's using that gaze on me. What does my future hold?
Sexual harassment.
Huh?
Oh my, what a disappointing person.
Sexual harassment.
Don't say it. It's an unspoken rule that we weaker ones pair up with upperclassmen. Plus, with Kuga by my side, my going deeper into the dungeon won't be questioned. Tenma keeps bugging me about my weight loss secret, but I have a plan. I'll pull out once we reach the 10th floor. That way I still get the reward. Fortunately, with Tenma's help, I ended up in Class A's lineup, and I can only say they're incredibly strong. Class B will be led by Swu, who's also aiming for victory. But she's a ruthless former noble who often targets the main character's group, so I need to stay alert. Class C isn't participating. Like Class E, they're focused on other events. Class D, on the other hand, is participating, with 4 people, including Korea. Is that look from him a request for me to carry their bags? Damn, I don't know how tough this is going to be. I can only tell myself to make it to the 10th floor, while Tenma keeps chatting away like a non-stop radio. Upon reaching the 2nd floor, we took a 20-minute break, and Tenma immediately wanted to go to the restroom. That's when some guys from Class D approached me.
Come with me!
As soon as we got to a secluded spot, I got punched, sending me flying several meters. I knew it. Those guys assumed I was getting favored by Tenma a bit, so they thought I was shirking my duty to serve them. They seem pretty annoyed, don't they? From what I know, this group usually isn't so violent. There must be some reason for them to act without hesitation. According to the data, they should only be around level 7 or 8. Also, that punch hurt more than I expected. They might have used an item to buff themselves. Instead of hitting back immediately, running away would be the most sensible solution, even if it means leaving Kuga behind. There's an item called the Fang of Mad Rat, which lowers intelligence but boosts strength, turning the wearer into a berserker. According to the storyline, Suo used this necklace on her subordinates. She tested it out on Class D. No way! My plan was to knock them out in an instant, making it look like a side effect of the item, but it seems things aren't going well. In that situation, settling things with a punch would have been reasonable, but here, it doesn't feel right, does it? I'll think about it more. For now, I'll just take this punch from the crazy guy. What? Tenma showed up just in time and ended this prank. Tenma was pretty angry seeing me just standing there taking their punches. She asked if I was doing it on purpose.
Yes.
You know, since birth, I've had a disposition that makes it hard to lose weight. I'm determined to fight against absurdities. That's why I hide my body and am dedicated to losing weight. Narumi-kun, if you have any doubts, then I'll protect you, until you have none left.
She's such a good friend, but I've always had to be cautious and react quickly in every situation to avoid losing what's precious to me. But I think it's fine to have a bit of doubt. Those guys have been tied up. I decided to tell Tenma my weight loss secret. Look at her. She rushed over to hear it as fast as possible. This was quickly noticed by Kikyu, who was also surprised by Class D's thuggish behavior. But her people only saw them as despicable for wasting their master's time. And so Class D was left behind. As for those rat fang rings, Tenma smashed them to pieces with a single swing of her hammer. Damn, she's way too strong. The others immediately started cursing Class D because without them, they no longer had anyone to carry their luggage. These were soldiers with Suo, and she didn't want her troops carrying luggage like commoners. While I was praying for these guys' fate, someone called me a lowly commoner, ringing in my ears. The guards decided I would be the one they trusted to carry their luggage. Damn it! But what excuse could I use to refuse? And just like that, I officially became a pack mule. Tenma immediately jumped in, claiming it was unfair, even though I said I was fine with it. She still refused, saying this would only make them more entitled. But honestly, I think I should take on this job. One of them, a noble, stepped up and said that since I, a commoner, had agreed, there was no reason for Tenma to interfere. Of course, Tenma didn't need a reason, but he has his reasons, as he's the heir to his family, so he won't do such menial work. Tenma, furious, started swearing. I had no choice but to step in, ending this unnecessary conflict. Tenma lamented about still being too weak, but I appreciated her for standing up for me.
Hey Kuga, could you carry a little for me?
Nope.
We reached the 4th floor.
Itadakimasu.
Just then, Tenma announced that it seemed the first quest had already been completed by someone else, and Yuma's team ranked last. It was quite painful and serious news. Everyone must be feeling desperate, while I'm here enjoying such a noble feast. I feel guilty, yet oddly satisfied. The only category where Class E is doing better than Class D is in collecting magic stones. Oh, this food is so delicious. My class is progressing toward the 5th floor, where it's reported there are orc herds. So, I assigned support there, hoping everything goes smoothly.
Kaoru and the Magic Stone collecting team are taking a break, and their results are the only thing keeping us ahead of Class D. Kaoru seems quite pleased, and everyone is giving it their all. Surprisingly, Umiya has exceeded all expectations. Of course, Kaoru doesn't know that Umiya Satsuki received special training from Butao. She's now able to handle large monsters skillfully and efficiently, with high effectiveness. Thanks to her, Kaoru has been able to reduce her own combat engagements. At that moment, a friend came over and reported that Tsukishima, the player, was nowhere to be found. Kaoru recalled that he had promised to bring her a massive magic stone. Could he actually be serious? Kaoru decided that the group would venture a bit deeper. Everyone agreed, and Kaoru felt touched, knowing that although everyone was exhausted, they were still determined to keep going until the end. But something strange happened. When they arrived at the monster area, there weren't any monsters in sight. Satsuki focused, trying to listen closely, and began to hear the thunderous sound of many monster footsteps approaching. She immediately shouted that someone was luring monsters towards this location, and there was an extremely large number of them, and who else could it be? It was the older brother of the fat guy from Class D. This is one of the worst kinds of rude behavior. When monsters lose their target, they'll attack any adventurers they encounter. At that moment, Pink's group was also heading this way. It was truly ironic. They'd get swept up in the wave of monsters unless Kaoru did something. Satsuki's heart burned with anxiety, knowing that in their group only Kaoru had the strength to fend off orcs. Even if everyone managed to escape the wave, there was still the risk of encountering scattered orcs. Kaoru clearly understood this and immediately ordered everyone not to run, explaining that the orcs here had already been lured away, making this spot the safest place to stay. Kaoru would go to assist Pink's group on the other side, but Satsuki stayed behind, which surprised Kaoru. Satsuki could only wish her safety. It wasn't yet time for her to reveal her true strength. After that, Kaoru hurried off. Kaoru called out to the ones who were running away, yelling that she would take on the leading monsters, and that everyone else shouldn't scatter, but should follow the leaders in their group. All right, now was the time for her to give it her all. As she fought, Kaoru thought about ways to calm the monsters down, because if the fight dragged on, her stamina would be depleted. It was a dire situation. Unexpectedly, two of the others fell to the ground, with the monsters charging quickly from behind. Kaoru didn't know what to do for a moment as the orcs were coming too fast. There was only one choice. Kaoru threw herself forward, embracing her friend and deciding to act as a human shield. Even her friend underneath shouted for Kaoru to run, but she didn't. Satsuki watched in horror, wondering how things had escalated to this. Fortunately, someone rushed over. He took the chance to apologize for being late and introduced himself as Kikuchi, their support. It turned out that earlier, Suda had asked Kikuchi to be Class E's support, praising him for his strength in making it past the 5th floor. But in truth, it was because Kikuchi was a trustworthy adult that Suda had asked him, and at that time, Kikuchi had promised to complete this mission with his life if necessary.
The competition has entered its 3rd day, and with Kikuchi's support, Pink's and Kaoru's group only had a few minor injuries. Pink is a healer, so everything is still going smoothly. Kikuchi quickly updated me on the situation, and I didn't forget to thank him a lot. Kikuchi was happy to be useful, and declared that I should leave everything to him. When Tenma saw me talking on the phone, she came over to ask, and even wondered if the support guy was related to weight loss. I could only tell her no, and that he's not a student of this school. Tenma sure talks a lot, but at that moment, I could feel the presence of many powerful people. Yes, it was the Black Butler team from the Tenma household, who always protect her excessively. What's with this deadly feeling? I feel like I'm being targeted, and suddenly, Tenma calls me, startling me. It turned out she made me a lunchbox from yesterday's food and shyly asked me to eat it. Now I understand. It probably looks like I'm seducing the young lady of their family. By the way, I have to say that among those arrogant and snobby nobles, Tenma really stands out, shining in her own way. Today, we're heading up to the 10th floor. I also told Tenma that I might withdraw at this level, and she immediately told me to eat until I'm full first. As for Kuga, she doesn't care either way. Her goals are different from mine. At the luxurious hotel on the 10th floor, Kikyu announced that she had booked the hotel room and invited Tenma-sama to go with her. So we had to part ways here. Tenma and I shook hands like comrades and promised to keep in touch. I sincerely thanked her for her help and wished her a successful journey. Afterward, Kuga asked if I was really planning to withdraw. Of course, I told her the truth and asked what she planned to do next. Kuga naturally said she'd withdraw if I did, but she had something she wanted to discuss. I deliberately pretended not to understand. Kuga said it was about the fight we had before. Back then, I saw through Kuga's movements, and now she insisted I couldn't run away, or the issue would remain unresolved. Kuga had always been by my side to find Suta's weaknesses, but unfortunately, she hadn't found anything. Suta's background and origins were completely normal. Now the only option left was to find answers through a match. After everything, I still have to deal with this issue. Kuga really is the biggest challenge. As soon as Kuga charged at me, I dodged once again and shouted,
"So fast. Are you really just level 6?
And scene. In reality, Kotone Kuga used a faker skill to hide her true level. She's actually level 24, with the rogue class and a background as an intelligence officer. I'll do my best to make sure no one finds out about my abilities. So this time, I'm still trying to escape. Now I have to use this magic tool. Such a shame, since it's really expensive. And with that, I completely disappeared from there. I reappeared at a teleportation gate inside the dungeon. Kano is also a rogue. Shit. Did someone show up at this moment? A man in full armor? Oh my, it's my father. As soon as he saw me, he asked about the school exam. I casually replied that tomorrow would be the fighting part, but there was something that caught my attention. It was his armor. It seemed a bit overboard for the 10th floor, but my father had always dreamed of owning it. Thanks to the hunting spots I recommended, my parents had made quite a bit. Both of them are now level 13. The level up also helped alleviate my mother's shoulder pain. My original goal was just to help them have a chance to survive when the Great War breaks out. It's nice to see that they enjoy it too. By the way, my parents also told me some news. They mentioned that Kano borrowed a magic stone to go buy something. They asked if I knew what exactly. Honestly, I have no idea. At Obaba's shop, Kano was trading for an item. What she bought was the disguise set that I, Suta, had prepared earlier. Then I realized there was an issue. It was the pile of luggage from Class B. If I withdraw, no one would be there to carry it. I had to return to the Black Hotel to hand over the stuff. The result was them cursing me like a dog. I understood that if I still withdrew, my school life would be over, so I had no choice. And so I entered the 4th day of the dungeon breakthrough. I'd told Tenma that my reason for losing weight was because I'd leveled up to 3 within 2 months. Tenma found it strange, since she'd leveled up 2 but hadn't lost any weight. All I could add was that I'd combined dieting and exercise as well. Suddenly, a bat-headed monster appeared out of nowhere, but before I could react, I heard footsteps charging forward. One of Tenma's maids had efficiently dealt with the monster. Tenma was alarmed to be found, of course, but the maid confidently claimed she knew her way around here very well. Now she took on the job of leading Tenma, also apologizing for acting on her own. With no other choice, Tenma thanked her and allowed her to do so, though it seems like she doesn't like me very much. On the 13th floor, they began setting up camp. The chosen site was on Windy Hills Peak, a spot with a good view, though a bit chilly. Classes A and B had thoroughly prepared, so their members had brought materials to set up camp. As for me, I'd be sleeping outside with just a sleeping bag like this. Anyone who didn't know better would think I was shameless. The truth is, I wanted to offer it to her, but Kuga declined. Suddenly, someone called me awake. They asked me to go with them for a while. Damn, it was Tenma's butler. I recognized them from the badge on their collars. Did their boss want to meet me? Which boss? It was probably that person, Yurika Kurosaki. From what I knew, anyone who could defeat Tenma in this game would grow closer to Tenma's personal maid. This character was as popular as the main heroes, so much so that players even requested a dedicated storyline for her. As soon as she saw me, she growled,
"You dare show up here like this, kid?"
Her tone and expression left no doubt. She was the twin sister of that person.
"What's your purpose? Answer me now."
I truly didn't understand. Eureka immediately shouted even more aggressively, accusing me of slyly trying to get close to her young lady. I really didn't understand why these people were so attached to Tenma. The Tenma family, originally arms merchants for adventurers, was granted a baronial title by the Empire due to their major technical contributions. These people had lost loved ones in conflicts with the old nobility, so they had rallied under the Tenma family and now protected her like bodyguards. In the game, it was Yuma they were suspicious of, and he had to stay wary of them. But as for me, I had nothing to worry about. I could only answer,
"I'm Tenma's friend. I simply talked to her as a friend with no other intentions."
Hearing this, Eureka's eyes widened and everyone fell silent. Clearly, there was no hint of deceit in my words. Eureka thought that Butao had been too rude, so she had planned to teach him a lesson. But now that she reconsidered, if they were really friends, that was perfectly normal, wasn't it? Then Eureka asked if I had anything to say to her. What could I possibly have to say to her?
What Souta didn't know was that Tenma had been behind the tent, listening to everything. Tonight would be a restless night for her. The next day, Class C withdrew. They hadn't planned to go deep in this category, so their leader hadn't even participated from the start. The competition was halfway through, and things were about to get tougher. This was Majima's group, with the task of defeating the designated monster. Their monster-slaying achievements weren't bad at all, but unfortunately, Class D had sent Korea to complete the same mission. Because of this, Majima's group couldn't keep up with them. Nita was worried about this team, but Naoto believed there was still time. With Nita's accurate predictions about the contest's contents, Naoto felt they could place their trust in Majima. However, the culprit behind the monster-luring attack on Kaoru and Pink's group remained unknown. Just as they were speculating about the perpetrator, Kaoru suddenly called, reporting that her group had encountered another wave of monsters. This time, they had gathered everyone and, with Kikuchi's support, everything was back on track. At that moment, Satsuki sent Naoto a photo. It was a picture of the criminal who had sabotaged them. The two of them immediately focused on the image. It looked very similar to the overweight guy from Class D. Clearly, Naoto felt this guy was familiar, like he'd seen him somewhere before.
Back when I went to deliver the backpacks for those people, that guy cursed at me like I was a dog, saying I should feel honored to be of use like this. Even though I said I was only level 3 and couldn't handle the monster's aura, they still refused. As a consolation, they offered me a free ride up to the next level. I recounted the whole story to Kuga. Kuga and I both realized neither of us felt any fear when facing the monsters on this 15th floor. Without saying much, Kuga immediately jumped down and activated her body enhancement. I tried to warn her that fighting would draw too much attention, but it was no use. Look at her. Kuga seemed incredibly excited, even challenging me to see if I could keep up with her. As for me, I used my ultimate technique, bowing my head quickly. Please have mercy on me! I could only hope this desperate move would help me, but Kuga looked annoyed. Then, she stepped on my head and asked what I was planning. I took the chance to ask if she'd consider becoming allies.
Continue.
But Kuga absolutely refused to lift her foot, worried I might escape again. She warned that if I tried to escape this time, she'd crush my head. Damn, she was really serious. At this point, I needed to stay calm and sort things out. Clearly, Kuga's main objective was to discover my identity. That wasn't her primary mission. In this world, there are special professions, like samurai or knight. Kikyu, for example, will eventually become a saintess. Kuga's job, on the other hand, is to investigate these special adventurers in Japan. So I decided to say, Kuga's profession
is as a spy for another faction, right?
She didn't want to discuss it. She just wanted to hear my proposal. I suggested that since we're both pretending to be students, we're limited in what we can do, so why not help each other out? Kuga declared that this would only be feasible if I proved to be both useful and trustworthy. Of course, I assured her of that, though there was still one thing Kuga wanted to know. How long did I plan to keep up this student charade, and what was my goal? My goal. I couldn't exactly tell her I was just a gamer. On the other hand, I did know a bit about Kuga's background. She's been through a rough life.
For your smile.
Nani?
Shit.
Definitely worth considering.
My God. And with that, our negotiation concluded successfully, on the condition that I reveal my true identity before this journey ends.
The competition had now reached its 6th day. Kaoru's group merged with Majima's, and Majima immediately praised Kaoru's team for being impressive. Meanwhile, his own team had already failed. Even though they had sent their most elite team to complete the designated monster-slaying task, they still couldn't escape last place, so Class E quickly transferred this group to the team working on collecting magic stones. Kaoru thanked him for joining them. After all, it was Majima's own suggestion. The 6th floor was an area Satsuki knew well, so luring the monsters happened very quickly, after which Kaoru and Majima would finish them off. They were still comfortably ahead of Class D by a margin of 100 stones, but then the sound of hurried footsteps echoed. Pink appeared suddenly to announce that yet another wave of monsters was being lured toward them. Kikuchi immediately suggested everyone retreat while he held them off, but this time Majima volunteered to give Kikuchi a hand, and Kaoru joined them as well. So the three of them began handling the monsters charging forward. While Satsuki ran off, she had something to do. She went to capture the guy who had lured the monsters there. Suffice it to say, Satsuki was incredibly strong. Even the former branch leader of Sorel was easily captured by her. He denied it, claiming he had just gotten caught up in it and was running away himself. Kaoru's group recognized him immediately as the guy in the photo, no mistaking it. And he also looked a lot like the big guy from Class D. Lying on the ground, he was in disbelief. His stats were clearly higher than this girl's, yet he still lost. With no other option, he let out a yell to call his teammates. Soon after, a squad emerged from the forest, looking quite battle-ready. Everyone was surprised, not even able to take a proper look yet. The fat guy from Class D loudly declared that we'd pay for messing with his brother. By the way, there was a badge on his neck. Kaoru noticed that it was the badge of Sorel, and Majima told Satsuki to let the guy go. They were definitely brothers, identical down to the last detail. As soon as he returned, he told Kaoru's group that they liked to start trouble.
You little punks. Did you really think you could mess with Sorel and get away with it unscathed?
Then he showed off his aura. Kaoru and the others were clearly no match for him yet. She hadn't expected that the Sorel gang, thought to be just troublemakers, would go this far. Meanwhile, Majima stepped forward, ready to face them. He figured they must be acting so boldly because they had the school's backing.
You want to go?
Kikuchi stepped up with his shield and told everyone to withdraw. For Suta's sake, he didn't want anyone to get hurt. The fat guy recognized a familiar face from before and declared that there was nowhere they could run. They were already surrounded. Kikuchi calmly asked if they understood what it meant to point real weapons at people instead of monsters. Did they know what that meant? Of course, the guy understood all too well. And then he immediately lunged forward to attack. But just as Majima was about to jump in to help Kikuchi, an enemy appeared behind him. He showed up so suddenly that Majima was startled. Then, in a flash, he swung his sword, and while Majima was busy defending against it, the attacker used his free hand to push Majima's head down to the ground. Kikuchi shouted his name, but he didn't realize that he was the next target to be attacked. The guy with long hair took the chance to slash him across the right shoulder. Kaoru quickly counterattacked, but he was quick enough to dodge her strike. He announced that he could now see through her movements, even the techniques she used. That was the moment when he defeated Kaoru. Satsuki looked on helplessly. Their main fighters had all been taken down. As for her, she was stuck with her promise to Nita and Suda. She couldn't reveal her power. Inside, she wondered if using it now would just be wasteful. Suddenly, a girl from the class tried to send a message to the guild, but she was quickly noticed, and they stopped her. Satsuki understood that no one would be coming to help them.
Sorry, Nita and Suda.
If she didn't act, then this adventurer life would lose all meaning. She was as fast as lightning. Both the guy from Sorel and the muscular one were struck in an instant. The fat guy couldn't believe his brother had even been hit. Satsuki believed she now had enough power to take down everyone here. Unfortunately, that wasn't true. The big guy wasn't hurt at all. He even managed to catch up and attack her. The other guy called him Kaga. Her friends couldn't even grasp what was happening, only seeing Satsuki darting around so fast, and more importantly, the man before her, on his collar was a lion head badge. A classmate recognized it as the badge of the Kanrankai clan, another branch of the Colors clan. By the way, Sorel was the final branch, and since Sorel had discovered a new hunting ground, Kanrankai had sent a high-ranking member to join them, Kaga S. Daigo. But there was no applause. Now, Class E had no chance of winning. They declared that Class E would have to compensate for the damage for daring to touch their people, and that quick little girl would also be taken away.
Back with my group, Suo from Class B was facing off against a fluffy beast that looked like a mix of a bull and a dog. Naturally, she was very strong, and the soldiers accompanying her clapped in praise. To Suo, this basket beast was powerful, but it would be a disgrace to her family if she couldn't defeat it alone. Kuga stopped by to observe for a bit. Even the praise for their master carried hundreds of meters. Afterward, Kuga spoke privately with me. Meanwhile, Tenma was discussing strategy with the whole class. Earlier, she had noticed something unusual about Suo, especially her sword technique. I didn't think it was suspicious because that sword stance was very familiar from games. The issue was that the basket beast had high defense and dark attributes, yet it was defeated too easily. It could only mean that her sword had been imbued with holy light, turning it into a weapon as valuable as a mansion. Thinking this made Kuga furious, her face tense with veins popping, as she thought it was utterly unfair. Damn it, I feared she might take out her anger on me. But I agreed that Suo, despite her complexity, was still just a young lady pampered in luxury. Just then, Tenma returned with some hot news. Everyone was physically exhausted and planned a group retreat on the 20th floor. Well, to me, that was good news. While Tenma thought anything past the 20th floor would be too dangerous for us. I asked who suggested it.
Shwoo!
Damn.
At this moment, Kano had put on her disguise outfit and set off to find Class E.
Meanwhile, the rest of us began making our way into the castle on the 20th floor. This used to be the Demon King's castle. Tenma thought it was our first visit here, so naturally, she started recounting the legend of this place, about the Saintess. That's right, the Demon King's castle is located on the 20th floor of the dungeon. Around the year 1950, Sarah Kikyu's grandmother, who was known as the Saintess at the time, teamed up with 3 others to defeat the great demon that lived in this castle. Rumor has it that they went on to clear a floor no one had any information about. It was astonishing, considering an entire legion of adventurers couldn't defeat the demon, yet the 4 of them did. Kuga immediately doubted it, saying it didn't make sense to send only 4 people. Maybe the legend had been altered. Even so, the game offered no clear explanation. The secrets surrounding the Saintess were highly suspicious. I figured that might also be why Sarah jumped into battle with such minimal equipment. Tenma mentioned that while she'd love to see the great demon again, it wouldn't reappear. Kuga then asked why. The truth is, once the boss of that floor is defeated, it doesn't respawn. And once someone enters the castle, they're transported straight to the 20th floor, completing the event. The crowd seemed to be jostling to get in first. They were even arguing loudly, especially between the old nobles and the new nobles, each calling the other more lowly and demanding they yield the way. So annoying. Suo then spoke up, suggesting that it would be best for her, Sarah, and Tenma to go ahead as representatives of the classes. As soon as Suo said that, the quarreling crowd instantly fell silent. I, on the other hand, found it suspicious. After all, this girl had always been at odds with Sarah and Tenma since middle school, which ultimately led to their current rankings. What reason could she have to voluntarily make this suggestion? Suddenly, Tenma declared that if it was about class representatives, then Suta, that's me, should go too. Damn it! Eureka immediately let out a sigh. Kuga also hurriedly insisted on going with me. Unexpectedly, Suo agreed without hesitation, which made Eureka visibly annoyed. She couldn't bear the thought of a wild animal, her way of referring to me, going somewhere private with Tenma, but Tenma snapped at her, telling her to shut up. That must have been the look of disappointment and hurt on her face. And not only that, Tenma firmly declared that Eureka had no right to insult her friend like that. Eureka could only sob and ask if I would be okay. Of course I would be. Meanwhile, Sarah's subordinates roared in protest. They urged Sarah Kikyu to reconsider, suspecting that Suo might have some kind of ulterior motive to act this way. But she wasn't worried at all, since it was only Suo going with them. She thought everything was so simple, huh? I needed to ensure nothing happened to Tenma or Sarah right now. It would throw the whole story into chaos, and if anything suspicious occurred, I'd deal with Suo myself.
Meanwhile, Satsuki had been taken down. Pink couldn't believe that a major clan like Kanran-kai would interfere in an exam like this. Oh, the guy overheard that. He declared that he'd see if any of the kids here were useful. And that quick girl, unexpectedly, she turned out to be from Class E. Life is full of surprises, just like how the current leader of colors also came from Class E. All right, there wasn't much time left, but before Kaga could declare the match over, Satsuki suddenly got up and attacked him from behind. Unfortunately, he had always been on high alert. Something Satsuki didn't anticipate. Still, she kept attacking relentlessly. He even remarked that her strikes were far too straightforward. In the end, he countered with a devastating blow to her face. It was clear the gap in strength was simply too overwhelming. Immediately, the other members of Class E charged at him, attacking from 3 sides.
Not bad, but that's all you've got. This one's weak. You tried, but you're just average.
That was Kaga's assessment of the group rushing at him. Then, in a flash, he sent them flying with a powerful kick. Kaoru suffered severe injuries, blood spilling from her mouth. Seeing this, Pink rushed over wanting to heal her. But glancing to the other side, the other two weren't faring any better. Kikuchi had even been stabbed once more by Kaga. Now, Kaga turned his attention to Kaoru. Pink, however, was determined not to let him harm her. Everyone else picked up their weapons, resolved to fight to the bitter end. Their determination only irritated Kaga further. He clicked his tongue, veins bulging on his face. At this moment, Kano arrived and saw Satsuki lying in pain on the ground. Without hesitation, she rushed in, ignoring the warning from the man. That's right, Satsuki had been Kano's teammate throughout these past days. Seeing Kano, Satsuki could only whisper for her to run away. But Kano insisted on knowing who had done this to her. Just then, the bastard who had slashed Kano's Achilles tendon last time appeared, loudly asking if Kano was Class E's supporter.
It's him?
No, run.
Kano understood immediately. It could only be him. Meanwhile, he rudely performed a simple appraisal on her. According to the appraisal, Kano was just a level 8 nobody, though it had made him worried for a moment. Fine, he would personally deal with her now. Naturally, Kaga agreed. However, when he swung at her, Kano easily caught his hand. Surprised? He hadn't even had time to react before Kano slammed him hard into the ground with a single throw. Majima couldn't believe his eyes. A small girl had taken down a Sorrel member in just one move.
There's no way my brother could be defeated like that.
Strangely, Kaga seemed crazily excited. He immediately figured it out. She was a faker. Charging forward, he no longer cared which faction Kano belonged to. Anyone using faker abilities could only be a dog of the old nobles. Now, he believed he had found a worthy opponent and was determined to unmask Kano and humiliate her. The Sorrel guy earlier was too weak. Clearly, he wasn't the one. So Kano asked Satsuki if it was him. Satsuki could only lie and say it wasn't, once again urging Kano to run away. But Majima believed this was an opportunity for them. If Kaga focused on the masked person, they might be able to escape. Of course, Satsuki refused. She wasn't going to leave Kano behind. However, Majima and the others didn't know who this masked individual was, and he didn't want to sacrifice anyone else. Most importantly, Majima had promised Yuma that he would protect everyone. By now, Kaga had stepped forward. Here were his stats. At level 22, he was an absolute monster in this area. He was one level higher than Kano, but his base stats were lower. He suspected Kano was appraising him, but he couldn't sense anything at all. Both of them believed they would emerge victorious, and thus the battle between two powerhouses began. Kano enhanced her body using Accelerator. Meanwhile, Kaga enhanced his body with flame arms. The sound of the first clash rang out. The two fought fiercely, tearing through a long stretch of forest. Clearly, Kaga had underestimated Kano. This strength, it thrilled him. So he decided to activate his boots. In an instant, he caught up to Kano's speed. However, in terms of swordsmanship and raw power, he had a slight edge over her. Now, he executed an unpredictable strike from behind, landing a solid kick on Kano's back. He had gotten faster. By the time Kano realized this, he was already swinging his blade with tremendous force. She was struck, sent flying like a bullet. In the end, her body slammed hard against a stone wall. Yet, Kano seemed unscathed, while some bystanders began to back away, recognizing this as a battle between monsters. Kaga immediately approached, analyzing Kano's accelerator enhancement ability. He speculated that Kano might belong to the Kunoichi Red Clan, but now he concluded she was from the Oboro clan. If she was a Boro, then he wouldn't let her live. He had to kill her. Damn it! Kano had only ever heard about Oboro from her mother, who used to warn her with tales whenever she misbehaved. Oboro was supposedly a legendary gang that kidnapped children. Who would have thought this guy actually believed in such childish stories? Still, he was undeniably strong. It made sense why Satsuki couldn't defeat him. Kano estimated he was on par with her older brother. Fine then, she decided to go all in on this match. Meanwhile, he taunted her, claiming that if her speed was ineffective, she was no different from any ordinary fighter. But there was one thing he didn't know. She hadn't even begun to go fast yet. Kaga didn't understand. Fast, for Kano, was the godlike speed her brother displayed when defeating that noble skeleton. Now, she declared that she would show him the power capable of defeating even a demon king. The power of a true hero. Step Shadow. Kaga froze in place, seeing a dark shadow ripple rapidly toward him. In that instant, Kano appeared behind him, her sword thrusting straight at his neck.
We entered the demon castle with an elite 5-member team. Look at Sue. She's so lively, chatting away happily the entire journey. Sarakikyu often asks her grandma about what happened here. It's truly amazing to finally set foot in this place and observe it firsthand. This is the very place where the Saintess defeated the Demon King alongside her 3 companions. Kuga, ever the skeptic, keeps wondering why there were only 4 of them. It's just his occupational hazard. Sarah simply says that she's always heard her grandmother mention that her team only had 4 members. There must be some special reason behind it. Could it be related to the Demon King's nature? Suo mentioned that the Grand Demon was supposedly a 5-meter-tall monster with 6 drooping arms, looking incredibly grotesque. Naturally, this made me recall some memories. Then, the group came across a piano. It didn't work. Tenma thought it was broken, while I, at that moment, felt my unease growing stronger. Suo explained that the piano wasn't broken. It only plays when someone is battling the Demon King. Suddenly, Tenma sat at the piano, feeling a bit curious, then expressed regret that she couldn't hear it play. But Suo replied that, of course, it could be heard again. Then she slowly pulled out an old, worn book, declaring that surely her friends had traveled far enough. Everyone wanted to see that demon again, right? Damn it, no doubt about it. This brat was planning to summon the Grand Demon once more. I rushed forward immediately. Swinging my sword, I aimed straight for the book. This was the demon summoning book from the DLC, and if Tsukishima could intervene in Kariya's battle with Yuma, he could also interfere with Suo. Everyone froze, unsure of what was happening, but I had to reveal myself. No doubt about it, I had no choice. The 4 of us alone couldn't defeat that demon. Tenma called out to me, but I immediately told her not to come closer. Activating acceleration, I had to stop her at all costs. Unexpectedly, Suo managed to slash off my left hand. Damn it! Then, she landed another blow on my abdomen. I couldn't believe how strong she was. She sent me flying. Tenma could only call my name in shock, unable to tell who was right or wrong in this situation. As for Suo, she began mocking me, calling me a commoner, daring to wound her face. I intended to activate my skill, but Suo closed the distance too quickly, faster than I could ever imagine. She delivered another slash straight down my body before I could even activate my ability. She was too fast, utterly overwhelming me. At that moment, Tenma could no longer stand idly by. She dove in directly, just before Suo could unleash her finishing blow. Huh? Is this how it's going to be? Tenma summoned her weapon, and with a single swing, forced Suo to step back a few paces. Suo told Tenma to calm down, and at that moment, she began the demon summoning. The book immediately lit up, and from within its pages, something leapt out. A massive magic circle appeared, tall, hairy. After twisting and writhing in darkness for a while, a goat-headed demon with 4 long arms emerged. Huh, shouldn't it have 6 arms? Sarah was horrified, asking Suo if she even realized what she had done.
Oh no, it looked incredibly powerful. So this was the demon lord of the castle?
Tenma demanded to know what Suo was planning, but Suo only smiled without answering, declaring that she had seen enough and was leaving, using the teleportation stone around her neck. She didn't forget to mock them, saying that if they managed to defeat the demon, they would gain glory just like the Saintess's party. Damn it, that lunatic actually fled. Kuga, now sweating, asked Tenma if she was confident. Sarah said that even with her and Tenma working together, they couldn't possibly win against this thing. Fortunately, Sarah had brought a teleportation stone, but unfortunately, it could only transport 1 person. She apologized, saying she might have to use it now. Sarah reminded Tenma to use hers as well. Every noble carried one of these precious stones. Sarah apologized again, saying she and Tenma had to think of their families. Then, she used the stone and disappeared. Now Kuga realized that the precious stone could help someone escape the dungeon, but she didn't have one herself. Kuga knew that unless they defeated this monster quickly, they wouldn't be able to leave this place. If Tenma had a recall stone, she should use it immediately, but Tenma hesitated. Kuga asked her what she planned to do. Yes, she hesitated. At that moment, her limbs refused to move. Tenma recalled her efforts over the past 10 years. At the same time, the ground beneath them cracked. A heavy, exhausting sensation washed over her. In her mind, she began apologizing to everyone in despair. Perhaps she really had no choice but to use it. Tenma recalled her childhood, when she would always sit alone in the classroom during recess.
Tenma-san! Tenma-san! Boo! She's so fat, like a market woman.
And now, people in her family didn't want her mingling with commoners, and Sarah kept reminding her to prioritize her family's honor. Meanwhile, the demon was on the verge of making a move, and Kuga asked Tenma what she planned to do.
There's no time left.
Tenma roared.
Shut up.
She immediately swung her poleaxe at the demon's punch. Back then, I told her she was my friend, and because of that, she couldn't abandon her only friend. She told Kuga to figure out a way to escape. If that's the case, Kuga would act. She dashed forward at incredible speed, slashing directly at the enemy. Kuga declared that if Tenma wasn't going to run, she should have said so earlier. Either way, after taking down the demon, she'd deal with Tenma too.
Her? That's strong.
Kuga bluntly stated she was stronger than Tenma.
Don't get in my way.
Who are you calling out?
Back to Kano. She overwhelmed Kaga with the speed of her attacks. Conveniently, Kaga had a chain on him, which Kano used to slam him hard into the ground. Kaga couldn't fight back. Just as Kano said, this was what speed looked like. But Kaga regained his composure and calmly observed. He realized that while her speed was great, it lacked consistency. Once again, Kano appeared behind him. She slashed him precisely across the back. Then she moved in front, landing a powerful strike that pushed Kaga backward.
Look at me, big brother! I can defeat the enemy now!
But no, he had calculated this to trick Kano. His mule kick used the momentum of his opponent's charge against her. Kaga mocked Kano, calling her an amateur. She was sent flying over 100 meters. Kano tried another slash from behind. Kaga could only laugh, saying she was too obsessed with attacking from behind. And just like that, Kano's strategy was figured out, leading to her defeat. Satsuki was in despair, and Kano couldn't believe she had lost. This guy was on par with her brother's level, but Kaga knew full well that higher levels didn't necessarily mean greater strength. He had constantly faced monstrous opponents, and his careful, calculated fighting style had allowed him to survive countless battles. He began mocking Kano's so-called hero strength, declaring that she didn't deserve such power. He said she had to die, yet Kano still charged at him, aiming for his back once more. But there was no surprise this time. He had completely mastered her pattern and told her she was too predictable. Her style lacked experience, relying only on a bit of talent and her level. And with that, Kano was slammed into the ground once again. Kaga raised his sword, ready to execute her right then and there. Kano was terrified, realizing she was staring death in the face. Unexpectedly, someone leaped in to block Kaga's sword. It was Kaoru. Even though her body was battered and broken, she used her last ounce of strength to save Kano's life. Everyone was shocked, even Kaga. Kano couldn't understand how Kaoru could even move. This place was suffocating under Kaga's oppressive aura, but there was something the overwhelming aura couldn't crush. Deep within Kaoru was something even more terrifying. She had been fighting against it every single day. So, what were levels 10 or 20 aura suppression to her? Nothing. She refused to let go until the masked one stood up again. She couldn't retreat. If she did, she would never catch up to them. Kaoru roared, her grip growing stronger by the second, and in that moment, Kaga's sword was flung away.
What the?
Kaoru then collapsed, losing consciousness, but thanks to that moment, Kano grabbed her weapon and shot forward. Using the stone wall as a springboard, she propelled herself with terrifying speed. Without a doubt, this was a piercing strike. Kaga's face paled with fear. It all happened so fast, in less than the blink of an eye. Unexpectedly, Kaoru regained consciousness. She couldn't allow herself to pass out now. Raising her sword, both girls attacked simultaneously.
Die!
Time to stop!
Kaoru unleashed a cross slash, while Kano delivered a full-power cleave. Kaga was defeated. Kano extended a hand toward Kaoru, hesitantly saying, "Thank you." But after that, Kaoru lost consciousness. Kano also collapsed onto the ground. Satsuki saw it but couldn't help. Thankfully, a few others caught Kano in time. However, it wasn't over yet. The fat kid from Class D and his friends stepped forward. They couldn't forgive Class E for defeating his brother and Kaga-san. One of the Class D guys declared that Class E's main fighters were down, while Class D remained nearly unscathed. Sadly, that was true. Kikuchi silently stepped forward, telling the others to fall back. He was just an ordinary person, a graduate from a regular school who thought he could pursue a career as an adventurer. In the end, he settled for a normal job, occasionally entering dungeons. He had thought that wasn't too bad, but when he was beaten by a kid and protected by another, he cried. It was ridiculous, they were children and he was an adult. Kikuchi had wondered if he could ever become as strong as that boy, or as dependable as those people. He wanted to grow up, to become stronger, to stand against such injustices. So he decided that no matter the circumstances, he would keep standing up. With his dented shield, Kikuchi would protect everyone once more. The other guy charged forward and slashed, but Kikuchi immediately raised his shield. The fat kid started cursing loudly. He announced that reinforcements from Class D were on their way. Then he recognized Kikuchi. It was the same guy he had bullied the other day, a poser in the fat kid's eyes. Remembering Kikuchi is good enough. What an honor. Kikuchi asked if it even mattered, considering he was just a side character. All he wanted was to be part of their story. The fat kid thought Kikuchi's confession was fantastic, but to Kikuchi, it meant he was ready to die here without hesitation. At that moment, Yuma from Class E and his group charged in. The most aggressive sword wielder in Class D was forced to retreat. Naoto shouted loudly, announcing that both his group and Yuma's had arrived to support everyone. The fat kid from Class D also took a hit from Naoto and slid backward. Class E nearly broke into tears of relief. Yuma immediately told Pink to contact him later, because right now they needed to retreat, despite some inevitable arguments. Kaoru saw Yuma and started crying, while meanwhile, the fat kid prepared to order a full-on charge, but Naoto shouted back, demanding an immediate retreat. He unleashed the light of the super torch, temporarily blinding the enemies. At the same time, Class E's retreat began. Newbies carried the injured, mages focused on healing, fighters guarded them, and rogues scouted ahead, avoiding wargs by staying hidden. Takeda was the one carrying Kaoru. She told Kaoru to hang in there, reminding her that everyone was striving for a happy ending. Yes, that's right. Everyone changes eventually. The blinding light left the Class D kids cursing under their breath, but it seemed a few of them stayed behind. Nita glanced at the boy carrying Kano and asked if he was worried about those two. That boy was the one who had voiced the real reason for their disappointment last time. Of course, he might be nothing more than a frog at the bottom of a well, but he wholeheartedly believed in placing his trust in Yuma and Naoto. After all, there was no one more reliable than them. Nita nodded in agreement as she carried Satsuki in her arms. Another reason for that trust was simple. They were the protagonists of this world. Now, Naoto and Yuma faced off against the Class D group. The aggressive one had already been taken down, and Naoto decided to lead the fight elsewhere. Along the way, he knocked over several trees to block any detours the Class D group might use to chase after their teammates. Naturally, the Class D group quickly understood his intention. The fat one felt insulted, declaring he'd crush them head-on, only to have something hurtling straight at his face. It was Yuma, attacking at lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, 3 Class D members were defeated. Naoto couldn't help but think how foolish the Class D group was, too arrogant to avoid a direct attack. For now, everything was going according to plan. However, Class D reinforcements would soon arrive. And the most troublesome of all, Kariya Isuma, an old enemy, and an inevitable rematch. The two exchanged greetings, though Kariya wasn't exactly warm about it. Without hesitation, he launched an attack on Yuma. Naoto shouted at Yuma, urging him,
"Take him down! You can do it!"
That immediately bruised the egos of the Class D members. To them, Kariya could never lose to Yuma. Kariya glanced around, noticing that the muscleheads from his class had already fallen for the trap. Too arrogant to consider taking a detour, Kariya could only sigh. lamenting that his friends were truly a bunch of people who grew up never needing to use their brains, deserving of punishment. Meanwhile, Yuma declared he'd use whatever was available to him. Kariya admitted that dealing with people like them forced him to step up as a leader. He envied Yuma for having teammates like Naoto, a brilliant strategist. Now, Kariya decided to fight head-on, just the way his class would want it. Damn it! The slash was too powerful! Luckily, Yuma managed to dodge. However, Kariya directly cut through the stone wall to attack, leaving Yuma with no choice but to raise his sword to block. The impact from Kariya's slash was like a cannon blast, sending Yuma flying. But almost instantly, Yuma shot back with incredible speed, sword raised, ready to retaliate blow for blow against Kariya. Kariya began to understand this guy had changed. Yuma could now even break through Kariya's defense. This wasn't the same Yuma desperately trying to win at all costs. This was a Yuma exhilarated by the battle itself. Once again, Yuma unleashed his double stinger. The strike landed perfectly. Kariya hadn't expected it. Not only was the hit precise, but it was also powerful enough to push him back. Kariya's slash missed as Yuma leaped in an arc over his head. Kariya's friends couldn't believe it. This guy was fighting on equal footing with their leader. Of course, Naoto wasn't surprised. His friend now had an entirely different presence compared to before. But at that moment, Kariya threw his sword backward, attempting to predict and counter Yuma's movement. However, Yuma appeared in front of him instead. Damn it, Kariya had no weapon left. To everyone's shock, Yuma discarded his own sword as well, leaving Kariya astonished. Yet in an instant, Kariya's surprise turned into excitement. Both of them charged at each other, trading thunderous punches as if commemorating their rivalry. Each blow shook the earth, leaving their faces swollen and bruised, mouths full of blood. Naoto realized Yuma was nearing his physical limit. His steps were becoming unsteady. Kariya was born into a family that had served nobles for generations, and life gently but early taught him that he had no natural talent. Still, he didn't resent the efforts of others or envy nobles like Suo. What he truly despised was his own stagnation. And then, Yuma appeared. Kariya asked,
"What is it you aim to do at this school?"
I told you already. I'll become the strongest adventurer.
See? That same smile again. Kariya was surprised. After everything, does he still hold on to that dream? So that's it. And then Yuma turned his back, and with lightning speed, he ran off. Yuma knew he'd bought enough time. There were others waiting for him. Meanwhile, Kariya's friends seemed utterly stunned. Naoto cast a fire arrow to create a smokescreen, then followed up with an ice spear to block anyone daring to give chase. But it seemed Kariya had no intention of pursuing them, and so Yuma and Naoto safely retreated. Kariya, he admitted he was captivated by Yuma, by that sheer willpower. In fact, during their last fight, he even found himself hoping Yuma would win.
"Give it your all, Yuma."
Naoto asked Yuma if he was okay with leaving the match unresolved, but Yuma was different now. Winning or losing wasn't as important as it used to be. If challenged again, he'd deal with it then. Now, the two of them headed to their class's hideout, a cave along the cliffside. Inside, everyone was safe, but anxiety was clear on their faces. They were busy tending to the injured. Taking in the scene, Naoto broke out in a cold sweat. He hadn't realized things were this dire. Some students couldn't hide their fear. One of them, trembling, asked Yuma and Naoto what they should do next. In the past, conflicts had always been simple one-on-one fights, but this time it was clear their enemies intended to kill them. This realization sent chills through everyone, making them feel paralyzed with fear. Losing this competition would mean a lifetime of struggle and hardship. Now they needed to know what to do next. Naoto understood that no matter how well they prepared, such fears were inevitable. This was the moment their leader had to step in and reassure them. Yuma encouraged everyone to hold on. After all, there was only one day left. But as soon as he finished speaking, he collapsed from sheer exhaustion. Satsuki and Majima brought out the provisions they had prepared, and the entire class agreed to rest here until the exam ended. While eating, Yuma shared some surprising information. Class D was actually in a more precarious situation than they were. His friends were shocked, but it was true. Class D had failed in their sabotage attempts, and for some reason, Kariya had intentionally allowed Yuma to escape. Now they were in a far worse predicament than Class E. Just as Yuma had predicted, on the final day, Kariya decided that his class could only focus on farming monsters to gather magic stones. This news gave Yuma's classmates a glimmer of hope. Given the current circumstances, Yuma believed they could defeat Class D in the total magic stone count this time. Class D was losing to Class E, something that seemed unbelievable. Yuma also took a moment to thank the masked girl for helping them during their darkest hour, and though he knew it was a big ask, he pleaded with Kano for her assistance for just one more day. She nodded without hesitation. Regarding whether Class D truly came to kill us, let's treat it as a possibility, but Kikuchi-san managed to protect everyone. Kaoru and the masked girl defeated members of Sorel and Kinran Kai, and all of them survived.
Thanks to that, I was able to move freely for an extra day. Thank you, everyone.
These words helped the previously trembling boy regain his confidence. The others joined in, agreeing that, regardless of everything, this was still a significant victory. With this, Naoto witnessed the results of Yuma's transformation. This was how he could truly reassure everyone. Suddenly, an overwhelming presence made itself known. Kano recognized this man's power, surpassing even her brothers. This teacher approached Kano directly. After introducing himself, Teacher Mirai asked Kano if she had an adventurer's ID. If she was acting as support, she needed to at least be registered as an adventurer. Naoto immediately signaled Yuma to stay out of it. Kaoru was stunned. Teacher Mirai declared that if Kano couldn't provide an adventurer's ID, Class E had violated the rules and would be immediately disqualified from this competition. Naoto argued that they hadn't been informed of such a rule, but Teacher Mirai refused to elaborate further. Kaoru's world felt like it was crumbling. After everything they'd sacrificed, it was all going to waste. Teacher Mirai, the harbinger of disaster, announced that Class E was disqualified from the competition. Kaoru collapsed in despair. They had underestimated the hostility this school held toward them. When the announcement of Class E's disqualification was made, it became undeniable. They were now in last place. No! There was still one group they could pin their hopes on. That's right, the entire class could only place their faith in Kuga and Sauta. At this moment, Kaoru felt like she was a child again, right in the middle of being bullied.
Please, someone, save me.
On the other side, the four-armed demon was pushing Tenma into a corner, and just when everyone had lost all hope, the protagonist, no, the background antagonist supporting character, made his entrance. The skill Cells of Satan activated. At that moment, Tenma cried and Kuga couldn't believe his eyes. Everyone else could only wait for the results of the test, relying on me and Kuga. I stood up, ready to give everything I had to protect that hope. I walked straight toward the demon. Tenma called out to me, telling me not to do anything reckless. Haha, how foolish. I could only tell her she was the one being reckless, while I could retreat anytime I wanted. Clearly, Tenma had more to say, but all I could do was thank her for helping me while I was unconscious. One more thing. I already knew this goat. I realized Tenma must have figured out my trick by now, but it didn't matter anymore. If I didn't activate Cells of Satan, I'd truly die. So now I roared and assigned the attack duties to the two of them while I tanked. This was a small demon, level 25, with 4 main skills. "Long time no see, little demon," I said as it greeted me with a punch. I had my skill set ready to take it down. Satanakia's stem cells, Shadow Step, Overdawn, Flamer, and August Blade. My first strike sliced across its body. With this skill set, honestly, I couldn't die. I turned back to remind them to buff their strength and focus on fire-based skills, then rushed forward again. Tenma immediately obeyed, while Kuga asked if I was part of the Empire. Oh my! Of course, I wasn't just standing there letting it hit me. The demon threw a punch that grazed my face. With its forearms, fighting it in close combat was a nightmare. Yet, I still managed to find the perfect spot to strike. I could even sense the punches coming from behind me. For first-time players, facing it would undoubtedly be incredibly difficult, but I was different. Besides that, I had 2 powerful teammates. At that moment, Kuga delivered a heavy blow to the demon's nape. As its head slumped forward, Tenma charged in, swinging an axe.
First slash.
The monster was sent flying into a corner of the room. I had teammates I could truly rely on. Because of that, I didn't have to defend alone against its piercing scream. which could have temporarily driven me insane. Instead, I could evade its attacks with ease. I'd had enough. I nearly died trying to hold myself back. And one more thing. Even though she didn't say it outright, that chest bump, it's enough to make me give it my all. Let's finish this.
How strange. No matter how I attacked, the monster wouldn't turn around to strike back at me. This has been the case ever since Souta appeared.
At this moment, Tenma lifted 2 massive pillars. Damn, she really is a powerhouse. The demon swallowed those 2 sausage-shaped pillars whole. Right after that, Kuga circled behind it, delivering another slash to the back of its neck. The demon was now like a fish on the chopping block. Tenma and Kuga could attack it freely, but it kept its focus solely on me. Kuga looked doubtful. She couldn't figure out how I managed it, but she knew it was because of me. As for this demon, it was supposed to appear only once. However, if players completed a certain quest and obtained a book from the DLC, they could summon it as many times as they wanted. I'm one of those who've killed this monster hundreds of times, so its every move is deeply familiar to me. As long as I kept myself within its sight at the right moments and struck when it was about to shift its behavior, it would always focus on me. I never imagined I'd be so fated to this demon. After that, I called out to my 2 companions, instructing them to use the Analyze skill instead of relying on Intuition when its health dropped below 25%. I knew Kuga would ask how I knew she had that skill. Damn it, I'll have to explain later. Especially when its health falls below 20%, this demon goes berserk. When I give the signal, both of them must leave immediately. Tenma obeyed without hesitation. While Kuga curiously asked what I intended to do, naturally, I would endure its madness. Kuga seemed surprised. She had observed this phenomenon during training. High-level monsters tend to go into a frenzy when their health drops below 20% and will repeatedly use special skills. Kuga appeared doubtful of my endurance, but she agreed nonetheless. The demon's health dropped to 26%, then 23%, and finally 21%.
Retreat!
It began with its eerie, blood-curdling howl. The demon then chanted a spell. Its entire body stood upright, its ultimate move Metroline. Shit! It was truly a terrifying bombardment from nowhere. Countless magical projectiles rained down onto the ground. The sight left Kuga chilled to the bone, the sheer destructive force beyond description. Even the surrounding area had collapsed completely.
There was no way he could withstand such annihilative bombardment. I should stop being optimistic. If it were just me and the armored girl, we'd have died long ago. There's no way he's alive. Not a single chance.
Kuga stood frozen at the edge of the crater for a long time, even though she had braced herself for this. Ha ha ha, surprised, milady. Of course, they were shocked. But there was no time to marvel. This battle needed to continue. And so, the Symphony of Death played once again, as we delivered the final critical blows.
Who on earth are you? Monster Narumi Souta?
Players have always strived to challenge this low-level demon for a chance to obtain rare items. One such player, known by the nickname Desator, was among them. I've fought it countless times, even setting the record for the fastest solo kill. And I can confidently say, I am its natural nemesis. As always, it was a brutal spectacle. Haha, farewell, little demon.
Over here, everyone is using the last day to hunt monsters, focusing on leveling up rather than competing anymore. Kaoru was a bit worried seeing Takeda pushing himself too hard, but Takeda refused to give up. She didn't want Kaoru to feel obligated to become stronger for everyone else. Each of them would just try a little harder. That's right, they would tackle the core issue, making themselves stronger.
In the floor 20 boss room, I had just finished off the demon. It let out a harrowing roar before disintegrating completely. Tenma and Kuga instinctively felt on high alert. I reassured them it was just a death cry calling out to its kin, but there were no other monsters of its kind nearby. Suddenly the ceiling cracked and someone crashed down. They landed straight onto the disintegrating demon. Upon arrival, she immediately criticized, saying that the power concentration of the remaining dust was too low. Then she turned to us in apparent surprise. Her gaze was truly terrifying. Tenma and Kuga instantly held their breath, staying on guard. To our surprise, the girl suddenly shouted,
Kuga-chan, Tenma-chan.
"What the? How does she know these two?" Meanwhile, Tenma and Kuga clearly didn't know her. I guessed she might be another player. I quickly told everyone not to be too wary, as she probably wasn't an enemy.
If Narumi-kun says so.
Oh, she's such a good girl. After that, she went off to call for the others. Kuga, on the other hand, was curious, asking,
Who is this girl, anyway?
But in the blink of an eye, she collapsed, struck down by a sudden attack from the stranger. I immediately recognized this as the demon from floor 38. Still, I had to ask, who exactly was controlling her? She stared at me intently, sending a genuine chill down my spine.
You chose Butao as your character?
What? Strangely enough, she still recognized me despite my changed appearance, but she herself seemed different. Nothing like an in-game character. That's right. She called him the top-ranked player nicknamed The Flash. Then she called me the Ruthless Disaster, accusing me of mocking him. He was a guy who once led a large and aggressive guild. Like me, he had a nickname bestowed by other players. Eventually, he asked if I knew any way to escape. What a ridiculous question. Isn't it as simple as just leaving the dungeon? The problem was, every time he tried to leave, he was automatically pulled back to the same spot. Neither teleport gates nor teleport stones worked for him. When he heard the demon's howl, he followed the sound and arrived here. I could only apologize since I didn't fully understand how these Majin functioned either. I truly felt sorry for him. He grew pensive, theorizing that the teleport gates and stones might only work for players level 30 and below. If that were true in the early game's mechanics, he'd just have to wait. However, at the castle on floor 38, no one else could even reach him. Suddenly, someone called out loudly. It was Tenma and her attendants. But it seemed Eureka wasn't pleased. She stormed in, yelling at me, calling me a brat. She grabbed me by the collar and furiously demanded to know why her master was in such a battered state, insisting I explain myself. Tenma quickly intervened, saying,
He saved me. Do you hear me?
The moment those words left her mouth, Eureka immediately dropped to her knees, apologized to me, and declared that all the dark butlers here were now indebted to me. Then they all knelt down solemnly. Damn, this is so embarrassing. But it's not bad at all. Now Tenma turned to ask who this girl was. Flash explained that he was just a regular demon with no intention of opposing anyone. If he had wanted to attack, he would have done so already. Of course, Tenma was a bit terrified upon hearing Flash claim to be a member of the demon race. I thought about reminding him to phrase it a little differently, but he didn't seem to care at all. Perhaps having failed to escape so many times had left him disinterested in everything. In the end, it was still a lonely life. After that, Flash wanted to leave. He sadly declared he would return to his solitary life in the dungeon, believing that getting involved with people would only tire him out. But suddenly, Tenma asked Eureka if she could recruit this girl into the Black Butler Corps. Eureka asked him why. Tenma said that the girl was strong and wasn't a bad person. Plus, she reminded Tenma of herself back then, completely without a single friend. She's sad and lonely. Those words caught Flash off guard, and he stared intently at Tenma. It turned out Eureka also knew this girl. She had helped her once when she was lost. So, Eureka said,
If you don't have anywhere else to go, you're always welcome here.
Those words brought tears streaming down Flash's face. It had been so long since he felt the warmth of human kindness. Flash immediately knelt down and accepted the offer. However, he couldn't leave the dungeon just yet. Once he could, he promised to join the Tenma household. Naturally, Eureka also promised to train him in their family's rules beforehand. Later, Nida and Satsuki contacted me and explained everything. I could only apologize for not knowing that adventurers needed to be registered for support or, at the very least, have an adventurer's ID card. As a result, they were disqualified. Satsuki reassured me that it was okay since no one had been aware of that rule. Besides, without Kikuchi, whom I brought to help them, they would have died before the competition even started. By the way, I also asked Kano if there was anything she wanted to say to me. I knew this wouldn't really affect the story's progression much. Looking back at my two new teammates, Kuga had woken up and seemed a bit confused. We had made it to the 20th floor. I had done my best. Everyone else had done the same. That alone was enough. Now, there was just one last concern. I hoped that my victory in this part of the competition wouldn't disrupt the story too much.
At this moment, Kaoru, along with Class E and everyone else, had gathered in the plaza to hear the results. The school representative began announcing the total magic stone points for each class. Kaoru held her breath, listening intently. She was incredibly nervous, while the crowd around her assumed Class E would, as always, be at the bottom of the rankings. Surprisingly, Tsukishima was back now, looking as nonchalant as if nothing had happened. His friends immediately bombarded him with questions about where he had been since the first day of the competition.
Ugh, this group is so noisy.
He simply patted Kaoru on the shoulder and told her that he had gone to retrieve that magic stone, just as he'd promised. "Just wait a bit," he said, though Kaoru had no idea what he was talking about. Class A ranked first with 846 points. Class A burst into cheers and celebrated. They had worked hard to secure the top spot. Tsuki thought it was only natural for Class A to be first. They had no weak members, completely unlike Class E. Second place went to Class B. The group immediately cheered for Su, though she looked regretful about missing first place by just 18 points. Third place was awarded to Class C with 438 points. Clearly, Class C wasn't happy, but they couldn't blame anyone, as the gap in ability between them and the top two classes was too large. Tsukishima remarked that Class C was still the same as ever. Even with support from some organization, they couldn't possibly win against the nobles, who were willing to intervene in the competition by any means necessary. Kaoru couldn't understand why the nobles would go to such lengths. Putting that aside, Tsukishima pointed out to Kaoru that something unusual seemed to be happening in the stands. One of the classes was being awarded additional points. Could it be Class D receiving bonus points? Tsukishima believed it might have something to do with the magic stone he had brought. However, the representative looked very flustered, sweat dripping from their forehead. In the Total Magic Stone Collection category, the class that gathered the most magic stones would win. This category emphasized the balanced strength of each class's members. Historically, Class E hadn't even cared about this competition, and it was usually around this time that many Class E students dropped out. But this year, the first-year Class E managed to hold on to every single member, those who had endured with unwavering determination, who had pushed through despair, the nobodies who fought to carve their names into history.
Achieved 4th place. Class E, with 349 points.
Immediately, Class E erupted, their cheers echoing to the skies. It was unbelievable. They had pulled off a miracle. Kaoru was still frozen in shock. She couldn't believe it. Kikuchi and Kano, watching from a distance, were overcome with indescribable emotions, their joy spilling over as tears. For the first time, they raised a voice of defiance against the school's oppressive policies. Tsukishima was still curious if it was his magic stone that had made the difference in points, while Majima, knowing who had truly achieved this, asked where Kuga and Suta were. Naturally, after doing the math, Tsukishima realized his stone alone couldn't account for such a large point difference. At this moment, only one person was absolutely furious. He immediately rushed forward to confront Sarah, demanding to know what on earth was going on. Sarah had no idea either. There could only be one explanation. Was it the magic stone that earned them 120 points? Su roared in frustration, declaring that the rankings had been rigged and couldn't possibly change like this. She even charged straight toward the representative, urgently demanding to know what had happened. The school representative then explained that Class E had cleared the 20th floor. The record showed that 3 individuals, Akira Tenma, Kotone Kuga, and Narumi Souta, had defeated a low-level demon lord on the 20th floor. The magic stone worth 120 points came from the demon Souta had defeated. Additionally, it was clarified that the cancellation of Mr. Murai's results only affected the group's previous scores. This explanation immediately left Kaoru gasping for breath, fearing that Souta had pushed himself too hard. The previously noisy crowd fell silent. Even Class E was frozen in shock, unable to believe what they had just heard. Tenma achieving this was plausible, but who were the other two?
Oh, was someone trying to stand out?
Suddenly, Pink rushed over and hugged Kaoru tightly, crying her heart out. "This is absolutely amazing! Naoto and Yuma approached to thank Kaoru, as their victory had come from her leadership. Kaoru didn't know what to say at first. She could only reply that she had merely kept everyone united. The rest was thanks to the efforts of everyone else. Both of them agreed that the battle had only just begun. Earlier, Nita and Naoto had discussed Mr. Morai's interference, believing it to be blatant meddling from a powerful force. Nita immediately suggested that they find a way to counter this by seeking out a powerful backer of their own. Naoto believed that the one giving orders to Mr. Murai might be the Hachiryu organization, which comprised 8 representatives from the 8 factions controlling the school. The more they resisted, the more fiercely Hachiryu would retaliate. At this moment, Nita came up with an idea. The upcoming Student Council President election, even though they were weaker, they had one equalizing factor: their numbers. Hearing this, Naoto instantly realized Nita's cunning plan, to use their votes to bribe someone within Hachiryu. What a formidable girl! And there she was, a girl holding a fan, Kasuka, head of the Thief Division in the Student Council. She was staring intently at Kaoru.
Oi, that girl over there. Is there a boy named Narumi Souta here?
This question immediately sent Kaoru into a panic. She hurriedly called Suda, but he didn't pick up. Suda had just gotten home, utterly battered and exhausted. He didn't check his phone. At that moment, Kasuka asked Kaoru to deliver something to him. Without hesitation, Kaoru sprinted at full speed straight to Suda's house.
Phew, it feels great to be home. My God, when I finished showering, I saw over 200 messages. But honestly, I was so tired and didn't want to connect with anyone. Let's see if there's anything on TV. But unexpectedly, a voice called out from outside the door, saying she couldn't reach me. It was Kaoru. And after I stepped out to open the door, Kaoru was shocked.
What happened? You look so thin.
Haven't seen this guy for 3 days? Wipe your eyes and take a good look,
I said, using that Eastern proverb to dodge the real reason. But it seemed Kaoru wasn't going to let it slide. She wanted to come in and talk. And look at her. She seemed so miserable. There's a personal hygiene service on every floor, provided to everyone along with other necessities. However, payment was made in magic stones. Other classes could use it freely, but Class E wasn't so lucky. I could practically smell her exhaustion. Mustering all my courage, I said,
"You're really tired, aren't you? You can use my bathroom."
Perhaps still haunted by that pervert Butao, Kaoru refused. I could only assure her it wasn't what she thought, and with that, the shower turned on.
Kaoru reflected on the expression her friend had just shown. Clearly, he wasn't the same as before, but maybe this wasn't so bad, right? Soaking in the bathtub, Kaoru felt like she was being reborn. Suddenly, Suda called out from behind the door, saying he had left lotion, shampoo, and women's toiletries outside. "Feel free to use them," he said, making Kaoru blush as she quickly thanked him. She hadn't expected the Suda she knew to be so different.
Is this the water that Suda used? Why am I even thinking about this?
Afterward, I made her a cup of hot cocoa, hoping she'd like it. From my experience, a cup of hot cocoa after a tiring day works wonders. Now Kaoru started asking questions. She said she wanted to talk about the competition, and of course I agreed. The first thing she asked was,
"Why didn't you answer your phone?"
Sorry. Did something happen?
Class E beat Class D in the Magic Stone category. We got 4th place.
That's great. Everyone's efforts were worth it. I'm sorry for making you worry.
You should have come back to meet us on the 8th floor. Why did you put yourself in such danger? Was it because I said to try your best?
No, it wasn't because you told me that. It was because the nobles forced me to carry their luggage and wouldn't let me leave. It had nothing to do with what you said.
Then why was the magic stone from defeating the great demon credited to Class E?
You really can't escape when a girl's interrogating you. I pulled out my phone, awkwardly explaining that it was Tenma and Kuga who defeated the demon. Damn it, I thought Tenma was keeping that stone. I really didn't expect this. So I could only explain that maybe Tenma gave it to me because we became friends along the way. That finally made Kaoru somewhat believe me.
I think Suda's pretty famous now, huh? Earlier, Senpai Karara handed this to me and asked me to give it to you.
It was her. She's one of the 8 dragons who control this school and a member of the Spired clan. I'm guessing they're inviting me to a party because of something related to Faker. Clearly, I can't just ignore this.
What group are you talking about?
Damn it, I let it slip. How do I even explain this? And where do I start? Should I bring Kaoru into my group and treat her as an ally? Kaoru is an honest girl. If I had her as an ally, I could indirectly gain support from Yuma and the others. But that's just my wishful thinking. She's better off not knowing about the DLC or other things. Her fate will be better that way, at least not like Satsuki's. Revealing too much information could ruin everything, and I feel even Butao would agree with this perspective.
Is there something you're hiding from me? Can't you tell me?
Now I stand between two forces, one urging me to tell her, and the other insisting I keep it all to myself. If Kaoru were in my group, would we end up like this?
Since they invited me to dinner, I decided I'd drop by.
All right.
She left. For the first time, she bowed to me, leaving me flustered. It feels like the distance between us has grown, doesn't it? And this cup of cocoa, why does it taste so bitter?
On her way home, Kaoru clenched her fists, thinking she might have been too harsh earlier. But she's not one to give up so easily, is she? The competition has ended, and Class E has defeated Class D. As for Souta, he had changed since spring, and Kaoru made up her mind to try and understand him again.
That wasn't such a bad thing, was it? And besides, I've come to realize the reason why I achieved this victory.
On a Sunday 2 weeks later, Kaoru heard some commotion outside her house. A luxury car, a supercar, had arrived in her small neighborhood. Its mere presence was enough to signal that someone of great importance was here. Even the most ordinary people could sense it. But it turned out that the woman was looking for Souta. Interestingly, Kaoru's and Suta's homes weren't that far apart.
Are you Narumi Souta?
Quite a surprise, huh? And so, this story temporarily comes to an end here. It is the result of 10 continuous days of hard work from our team. If you enjoyed it or have any feedback to share, please feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you sincerely, and we wish you a wonderful day.